Good morning, friend.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I have my dance and my I Heart Straight Bears on my coffee mug today.
Sweet. I think
Yeah.
people should start getting their stickers. Like I mailed them out on Monday, right? Monday or Tuesday, whenever I said, so people should
Yeah.
start getting them today. So if anyone
Exciting.
gets them, let me know. I'm so excited. And
I
of course,
really
if you,
love the heart ones.
are the heart ones so sweet? Kevin
They're
made
so cute.
those.
I know.
Kevin made them. So if you need the art, you can get it from him. This is Something's Off, a podcast
This
about true crime where things are a little bit off.
a little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit off. There's lots off right now, actually. I'm Mel Barrett.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie.
Okay, and Rebecca already said who we are, so we're good.
Yes, and I
Um,
just hijacked that from you. We're just so
that's okay.
excited because we finally got our heads to be at the same place in the
Just
camera.
about. Actually,
And
you look lower than me still.
shit, hold on. I can fix that. Hold on, if I
Hello,
lower
chat.
down.
Good morning,
Now I'm
Jess.
too
Good
high.
morning, Kendra. Good morning, Shelly. Good morning, Googly. I
This
think
is such fancy problems.
such
I
fancy.
can't deal with my TV being so okay. I know I made it
That's
full
better.
screen. I don't want that. I don't want full
And
screen.
it could be just that my hair is really high today.
I gotta get out
Closer,
of full screen. Hold on.
bigger the hair, closer to
Oh,
God. Is that what they say?
that's what they say in the South, allegedly. That's what you've always heard that they say. Who knows if they actually say it or not?
I mean, they say,
I'm a slumper, so the slumping doesn't help.
oh, yeah. And I am wearing my, oh God, I'm going to read it. If come talk to me if you remember Pamela Smart,
Oh,
because my Nightline episode came out at midnight.
yes. Tell us so tell us how you feel about your Nightline episode. I haven't yet seen it. I taped it. I'm afraid that I may have taped tonight to the one that's coming on later, but maybe not. I have to check my DVR. I thought it was coming on tonight at midnight. I messed that up.
Last night, at
You said
midnight,
Thursday. Today's
like
Thursday.
midnight,
I
12:37 a.m. is
I
Thursday.
understand that. But I wasn't but the day I was awake before is the day I think of it as the day when I'm watching something on TV. So I may have done the right one. We'll see.
Yeah,
Oh, look at
it was
that.
the chapstick lesbian. I love it. It was a Nightline Impact show. So it's a 30-minute documentary series, which I think they did a great job. Obviously, they cut out so much, but I looked horrible in the mustard yellow. They were wrong. I look awful.
I'm gonna see if I have
Don't
it on my
It's
DVR.
so
I
bad.
gotta look. I gotta look.
But the other stuff, that my other clothes, my regular clothes, I look fine. Right.
So
So I'm
you're in
wearing
it both ways.
So they filmed here at the house. So in a couple of different locations at the house. They actually filmed in my little studio where I record here. They filmed on the couch and in the kitchen, and then I went to New York to do my like day-long interview there, and that's where the mustard yellow happened, and it's awful, you guys.
I've
It's
got it.
so,
I've
so,
got it.
so
I'm
bad.
just gonna fast forward to so I can see you.
Yeah.
Let's see.
But it's good.
Tuesday.
I think it's balanced. Of course they have like Nancy Grace in there, and she's,
Fucking
in
Nancy
my
Grace.
opinion, fucking Nancy Grace.
Wait, why is Lisa Rinna on my screen?
Oh, because that is the other episode. You have to look at here, I'll send you.
Oh, I taped the wrong one. I
Yeah,
was gonna say Deborah Roberts is wearing mustard yellow, but I don't see you.
I felt like that was gonna happen, that people were gonna get the wrong one, but I'll send it to you.
Nightline. Can you pull it up on your computer and we could just see a screenshot of you in the yellow, please?
I was trying to do that, and it's wanting me to sign into Hulu, and it's
Oh,
not allowing me to
gotcha.
sign into Hulu,
If you have
unfortunately.
another tab open, you're also frozen because that's what
I
happens.
know. That's what
Oh,
I
we know.
have. Yeah. So
Yeah,
there it
we
is.
know. Folks don't really like, yeah. So we just spent 15 minutes playing with our cameras talking about Nightline. But so what did you think? What was the story that they told? Like what part of it were you happy with? Weren't happy with Nancy Grace, but if Nancy Grace is going to be on anything, I think
Yeah.
people know
So
about Nancy Grace, right? People
yeah,
generally know
for
she
sure.
sucks. Yeah.
So the thing is they have to tell it in a balanced way. The thing I really appreciated though is that they took all the points of the habeas and they broke it into sections. Matt, Pam's lawyer, who's my good buddy now, was so good. He was so great on camera. And they also brought in Professor Davidson, who did the confirmation bias study for this case in particular, which is being used. And it's a groundbreaking study. And it's about the transcripts and the wiretaps in Pamela Smart's
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
So basically, it's a very balanced take on it, where they have Nancy Grace on one side and they have a legal analyst from ABC News on one side being like, yeah, we're not so sure the arguments are strong enough, whatever. But
Yeah.
then when they show our stuff, like, I feel like if you don't know anything about this case, if you aren't embedded in the sort of salacious tabloid news of this case, you might go, well, I think there's something there, and then maybe
Mm,
into it. And that's all we want, you know.
right.
Matt makes a really, really great case. They sort of use me to narrate us through the points
Yes.
of the hate.
You're the exposition monkey, as we used to call it.
Yeah, so I'm the, but it was really, I feel like they chose some good bits. There's just so much that's on the cutting room floor, which always happens. I knew that going into it. My biggest fear was that they would take this controversial case, which people have very strong opinions about, and that they would make me look like a hack. But I don't think they did. I feel like the points that I made are important. Because it wasn't about, but they were focusing on the research that I did, and the evidence that I discovered that helped Matt write the habeas and
Right.
sort of gave him the basis of the habeas. So,
Right.
without they didn't go into any kind of depth talking about the podcast, but I did have my Chiron that had my podcast on it.
That's what
And
matters.
that's what matters. Um, and I mentioned Grab Bag Collab because, Amber and Amanda and Daisy sort of gave me my first shot after I played my episode for you and Ellen, and you guys sort of mentored me through that process. So I was really hoping that they would mention some of the people that I, respect and who had mentored me. Unfortunately, that didn't make it in.
Nobody
Um,
expects that, Mel. Nobody expects
I
that.
know, I know, and no one expects it, but it's really important to me because I wouldn't have been able to do any of this without you and Ellen and Amanda and Amber and Daisy.
You're so
And
nice.
so, well, I'm just saying, like, I wish those kind of things had made it in. There was a call between me and Pam, um, that I was really hoping a bit of the call came into the episode,
Mhm.
but it was a 15 to 20-minute phone call that Pam and I had. And it was a very sort of emotional, conversation and like I got emotional, she got emotional. We were talking about her father passing away, a couple months ago, and we were talking about her mom and her recent diagnosis with dementia and how Pam really just wants to get out of prison so she can go take care of her mom. I mean,
Mhm.
that's the bottom line. And that, is always difficult to hear, but Pam doesn't often get emotional. Well, she gets emotional, she gets angry, and um she's stubborn, she's all those things. But I very rarely I I think I can count on one hand the amount of times that I've seen or heard her cry.
Mhm.
And, this conversation that we had on the phone, she got very emotional, and I thought it was really important. They only put a little tiny bit of it in, so there's, like, things like that I wish had made, more of an impact, but,
Yeah.
they only had 30 minutes, and I think they did a really great job with the 30 minutes they had, is what
You
I'll
didn't
say.
hate it.
I didn't hate
Not
it, and I f
not hating
yeah,
it is, like, good for a television show about a thing you did. Like, hating it is normal, like, hating it
yeah.
is baseline. Not hating it is well above average. Loving it is very rare, almost
Well,
impossible.
and I didn't love it because I thought more could've like,
Ooh,
they
Sam
could've
saw
shown
it.
more.
Sam, what are your thoughts on the yellow sweater? Everyone wants to know.
So bad. So, so, so bad. Oh god. It was
You
so
didn't pick
bad.
it. You didn't pick it. It's
And
not your
and
fault.
also the way that they shot me, so when I was in film school, there were like when you're talking about, the area of the screen and the camera, right? A medium close up, they used to call it like two T's, which basically means two tits. So like from your tits up. They decided to shoot me at my thighs up, and the yellow sweater makes me look like this little round yellow ball, and it really pisses me off. And I wish that I hadn't been convinced because I had the choice. I could have said no, but I was like,
Oh,
"I
you
trust you
could've.
guys. I trust you guys."
You
And
gave consent for the yellow
that was
sweater.
my big mistake. Big mistake. I'm gonna actually text the producer and be like, "Yellow sweater sucks."
Yellow sweater sucks.
Um,
That's so
because
funny.
the rest of it is me wearing like black like I normally do, and like
Yes.
maybe a little bit of print or whatever, and I look
Wardrobe did you
fine.
dirty. Yeah.
I look normal. But yeah, so let me look at some of
I'm
these
putting this
comments
one
here.
up. I'm sure you looked great. See? I'm sure you looked great.
It's not true. Chelsea Clem, hey Clem. Clem says, I wonder why people don't discuss the disingenuous parts of Nancy Grace's origin story. Her story about her murdered boyfriend isn't 100% genuine based on others reporting.
That's
I have
right.
also heard that. I don't
I've
know
heard
if
that
it's
too.
true. I've also heard that she used that to make her career as this like
There are a
chaos.
lot of people in the true crime space who have juiced their credentials in order to make themselves seem legit. There's a podcaster that you know that I have told you about. I happen to know did that. There are just a lot of people who like talk about their prosecutorial record or their investigative
Mm-hmm.
background, and it's like, I mean, we all
Someone,
people do. I mean, it's like you talk about fudging your resume. Like for an instance, like if I wrote a resume today,
yeah.
some of the awards that projects I worked on would be on there. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be very clear that if it was like a podcast that my station made or whatever, or like a Murrow Award for news, that like I didn't do it by myself. You know what I mean? It's just like I was one of like
Mm-hmm.
8 people or whatever. So, but I 100% put them on there. Someone told me that 10 years ago. They're like, put every award this station has won when you've worked here on this fucking resume.
Yeah.
And so I do that, but it's like I would never call myself a Murrow Award winning journalist. I mean, I guess I am, but no, I wouldn't
You
call
are.
myself that. No, I wouldn't, because I wasn't the lead on any of the projects that won. I've never
It
been a
doesn't
lead
matter.
on a
You were
project that
still
won.
part of the team,
Yeah,
you know?
I don't think of it that way. It's like is the gaffer on an Oscar winning best picture movie, are they an Oscar winner? Or did they work on an
Sure.
Oscar winning movie?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know who what a gaffer is, it's basically a lighting and electric person who works on a film set.
Who puts the tape on the floor?
Well, yeah. Well, that's more of a grip.
No, that's
A
what I
grip
mean.
would put
I meant who puts the tape. I was asking the question, who puts the tape
a
on the floor?
grip, a grip,
Okay.
key grip or an assistant grip. Grips are like, I hate to say this, but they're sort of like the grunt of the film crew. Electricians and the DP, they're all part of like the gaffer crew. But we in the documentary on Nightline, we have a common person. We have a few common people that are in it, but they
Polly M?
really yep, Pauly Maggiato's in it. And I am so happy that I got to narrate that part. So I get to talk about how he put the whiteboards up. You know, the amazing thing when I'm making the podcast or when
Oh,
I'm
wait, we
making
should orient folks. Who is Paul Maggiato?
Paul Maggiato was the lead prosecutor against Pamela Smart, and he back then he had this big head of hair and this big bushy mustache. He looked like Groucho Marx basically, and he's a bulldog.
Groucho
He's a
Marx.
very
He looks more like a wannabe Tom Selleck to me.
okay. Then take Groucho Marx and mix it with Tom Selleck, and that's Paul Maggiato in the 1990 trial. He's a little guy with big hair and a big
Very
mustache.
energetic, very Italian.
Very bulldogish. And he hates Pam Smart. And he went after her hard. But what he did in the trial was he put the transcripts on these big whiteboards and he threw them in front of the jury. And he basically is like, see, look here. She killed him. She says it right here. But the argument that we've been making, and I think Pam's been making for 35 years, is that the transcripts were never evidence. The judge advised the jury that the transcripts were to be used as a guide to the wiretaps. Now, that's the biggest part of the habeas petition for Pam, because Marion Davidson, the professor from Loyola who studies confirmation and cognitive bias, did a group study. Like she created a study specifically about this case and found that the transcripts, when you have 3 different parties, 3 different groups of people who sit down, and in one group you just get the wiretap, so you only hear what's on the wiretaps, and in the second group you get the wiretaps plus the transcripts that were provided by Paul Maggiato that were created by an unknown person in the DA's office.
Like
Paul
a
Maggiato,
secretary or something. Yeah.
he calls her a secretary. He said he can't give me her name, he doesn't remember it. And then the third group is the wiretaps and then a possibility of what another transcript might say for those wiretaps.
Right.
And in those 3 group studies, in those 3 study groups, the Marion Davidson discovered that you cannot unhear what is on the paper in front of you if you have it in front of you.
Right.
And so when Paul Maggiato puts up these whiteboards in front of the jury, he's basically telling the jury, hey, this is the evidence. This is you can see it right here on the page. He says
Right.
that.
Right.
So the amazing thing about ABC News and Nightline is that they have an archive on this case that is so amazing. So they were able to go back with like Diane Sawyer and pull these really relevant clips that I can't use normally. I can use like little bits and pieces of them, but they were able to recall an interview with Pam that happened only like 3 years after she was convicted. I think it was right after she got to, Bedford Hills, and it's Diane Sawyer, and Pam is still saying the same thing that she's saying today, which is the wiretaps and the transcripts are wrong. And Diane Sawyer, one of the reasons why I started looking into the wiretaps and transcripts is because of this interview. ABC News hired an independent a forensic audiologist to go through the tapes to verify if what Pam was saying was true, and he found it to be true. And this report came out in like, I want to say 95 or 96-ish,
Yeah.
somewhere in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And so the idea that that existed, and Pam's been saying it since, back
But people
then,
pretend
and
it doesn't exist.
people pretend it doesn't exist. So, but they were able to go into their archive and pull out video from the trial of Paul Maggiato with the boards, and pull out photos of Greg Smart's dad like glaring at Pam or wearing the headphones that he ripped off of his head in court and said, I can't hear these damn things. What are they saying? So their archive was so instrumental in telling this story, and I really appreciated that. So
Yeah.
I think it was well done. I trusted the producers. I trusted that they were going to tell the story right, knowing at the same time that they were going to have to give the balanced opinions, which they did, but they chose Nancy Grace, and
Yeah.
she comes off as crazy. So maybe there are people out there that are like, well, it's Nancy Grace saying it. Maybe we should listen to what the other guys are saying. So who knows? I hope that it changes some people's minds. I hope that they might start looking into this case. I think it's really interesting. So I think it
It
went
is
well.
interesting.
The yellow sweater is awful.
Think about, you have watched like Microdots videos, and this is one of the
Yep.
things, like, I think what that guy does is creative and cool, but at the same time, it does change your brain. So he did
Yes.
that video about that 6-second phone call
Yes.
from
Jen
Jen
McCabe.
McCabe to Coco in the house that
Mhm.
morning, from that Karen Reed's phone picked up and it got recorded on John's voicemail.
Right. Where
She
she's
threw her phone in
whispering?
the back seat. Yep, she threw her phone in the back seat of Carrie's car. She left it in the back seat of the car when she went to run out to John on the lawn, and Karen's phone line was still open, and it was all recorded on John's voicemail, which is so
Right.
interesting because
So
were it
interesting.
not for John's voicemails,
Right.
they wouldn't have known to look like for this call or whatever. So, but Carrie called Coco. It was picked up for 6 seconds, and what Microdots in one of their videos says she said was, they're sending help.
Yep.
And so that's all I can hear now, but
Right. Yeah.
I know that was a guess. What she said was
Yep.
a guess. So,
Yes.
that is, it's like when you watch Ghost Hunters. Have you ever seen Ghost Hunters or one
Oh,
of those?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and they play that tape that's like, "Roar, roar," and it's like, here it says
Mhm.
saying "get out," and then you hear
Yep.
"get out," but it's not. That's just
Yeah.
"roar, roar," So it's
Yep.
just like that. It's like, it imprints it on your head, and then you can't unsee it. It's sort of like a, like an image, like that little Loch Ness Monster image, which we all,
Yeah.
whenever you think of the Loch Ness Monster, everyone sees the same picture, which is
Yep.
that little hook coming out of the thing with
Yep.
ripples around it.
Yep.
So it's like there is there's like an imprint thing that happens. That's so interesting. So interesting.
It's very interesting, and, the only physical piece of evidence that was used against Pamela Smart in the trial were the wiretaps.
Yeah.
So if the jury is including the transcripts as part of that as evidence, even though they were instructed not to, you can't put the toothpaste back into the tube once you have the transcript sitting next to the wiretaps. So if the only thing, and the jurors said the only piece of evidence that we had against her were those wiretaps. So, there's one in the documentary, there's one little tiny bit that I go through for the producers. And it's a very simple thing. I have this spreadsheet. I went through the wiretaps myself, and I listened and wrote down what I heard, and I compared it to the transcripts, and I can hear very distinct pieces that are completely missing. So words missing, the person in the DA's office who made the transcripts inserted words where there weren't words. And there's this very specific example where the word on the transcript, it says the word should. And when I listen to it, I hear the word that. And the difference between, I know that sounds so minuscule and stupid, but really what it comes down to is the sentence is something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing here. They should have killed, or I knew that they should have killed Greg or something like that. But what I'm hearing is that something along the lines of that he was killed.
Yeah.
So you can hear in the difference if
It's
Pam is
intention.
saying
It's intent.
it's
Yeah.
intention, it's intent, and that's the thing. And so if you change one word because it's what your cognitive bias or your confirmation bias tells you, then that is not something that ever should have been handed over to a jury. Imagine if they'd done that to to Karen Reed.
Yeah.
If they had taken that voicemail, or if they'd done it to Jen McCabe, like what you're saying. Imagine if Alan
They
Jackson
did
had
play it
taken,
in the first trial, and she said she couldn't understand it, and then they just abandoned it and let it go.
but that's what should have happened in this trial as well. If the tapes are played and the witness says, "I can't understand it," without transcripts, then it needs to be dismissed. And that didn't happen here. So I found that, that was a really great sort of breakdown of how that worked. So they took Marion's study, and what was great was they actually had her in the room with students, and she showed the groups and she explained the whole study to the students. And so they had that. And then I sort of bookended it by saying, and this is what I'm looking at. And I'm showing them the transcripts. I'm playing the wiretap. I'm showing them my spreadsheet
I
of
gotta watch this. I'm so excited to see it. And
yeah,
not
it's
just because of the
interesting.
sweater. Yeah.
God, it's so bad. It's so bad. I should probably make it my like profile pic or
You
something.
should make it your profile picture. That would be so good. If you just
Yeah.
like, yeah. That would be
Yeah,
classic. It would be so Paul Maggiato. I think we talked about this in the readathon, but not here, right?
maybe.
Paul Maggiato is an attorney. I met him. I knew he had
Yeah,
been
he's
Pam's
not an
defense
attorney
prosecutor.
anymore.
He retired, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I met him in, I want to say like 2011-ish, somewhere
Mhm.
around there. I was divorced, and my ex-husband had gotten remarried, and we got along great before.
Oh, you froze. You're frozen. Oh, no. Why are you frozen? Are you trying to look at
Still here?
things?
Yeah.
I
They're
can
they're
hear you.
yeah, they're no
Oh, you're good,
longer
you're good.
yeah, they're no longer together, but, so I'm comfortable talking about this. But she had a very ugly divorce with her ex, and
Mhm.
she encouraged him to treat me like she treated her ex. So
Mm,
suddenly it became like, the kids weren't allowed to bring their ice skates to my house because I should
right.
provide them with their own ice skates at my house or whatever.
Mhm.
And like that's what the child support is for. They're not allowed to bring their skis. They're not allowed to bring their bikes. It was like ridiculous. So I was really mad, and I wanted to. I never disparaged my ex-husband. I never wrote a nasty word to him. I never said a nasty word to him. But I was like, the only thing that will get him to sort of wake up.
Oh, you froze again. I think it must be something going on with your Wi-Fi maybe,
Putting
because if you're
Mel,
not opening any wait. So, the last thing I heard you say
I'm not a
was, "If I could just." You're frozen. Do you wanna go out and come back in? Oh, Jess, this is a really interesting point. I would love to hear that too. h- I've wondered how accurate the transcripts from the Charlie Edelson and Katie M combo. What info would we get without the transcripts, if any? Hey, Jess, remind me, were the transcripts part info would we get without the transcripts, if any? Were the transcripts a part of the trial as part of were they evidence in the trial? Because in Pam's case, the transcripts were not evidence. And the judge made sure to tell the jury that they were not evidence, that they were just to be used as a guide, but that should have never been allowed. That was part of the problem. So let me know if the transcripts were part of the record. Oh, stop it. You click the button. Okay, I will click the button. Where are you? Okay.
Are you seeing the scrolling thing? This is
What
so
do you mean?
I'm seeing like a reloading thing when I
No.
when
No, but you're definitely freezing up. You just froze again. Um,
back.
yeah. Oh, you're there. You're okay.
We literally just installed a new modem upstairs this morning to deal with our
Yeah.
stuff. Let's just pray. I can always go to
Yeah, you're frozen again. Um, Okay, we're still talking about transcript stuff. And when wait, are you there?
I am.
Okay. You're okay right now.
For this second.
For this second. Okay, so you were in the middle of what seemed like it shouldn't have been a contentious divorce, but oh no, was this just about the kids? Oh wait, you're frozen again. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Let me see some of these comments. We are missing the best part of the story. Yes, we are. We're going to find out more, I promise you. Oh yeah, like the convo from that restaurant. Amanda says, Mel, I was on a jury where we had jail calls that were not understandable without transcripts. Here's my question to everybody though. If you can remember, oh, I have to text her the link. Hold on. If you can remember, hold on, give me just a second. Let me copy. Let's see if we can get her back. All right, I am texting her the link. We'll see if that works. If you were part of a jury or you have like you've been invested in a case, were the transcripts considered evidence? Because that's the big question. So in modern trials, when a transcript is needed to go along with wiretaps or to go along with any kind of audio that might be off, they send it off and they get it done by a certified transcriber. So it's a neutral party, an independent party, and they will look at, let's see if she's.
Here I am.
Hi. So I don't know why it's not working. So sorry.
It's all right. It might just be internet shit. So I'm just gonna move this. Look at us. I'm just improvising.
I love it. I love it.
I'm using Kevin's little stand here, which is too low. Hold on.
You get yourself set. I will continue talking about what I'm talking about, and then we can go back to your story about divorce.
Okay. Everyone loves hearing about divorce.
I know they do. So my question to the audience is, if you were on a jury or involved in, a trial, or you've been watching a trial, it has to be established by the judge. And it's either pre-trial or it's, an instruction to the jury. These transcripts are either certified and they are evidence, or they are not evidence and they're just a guide. So in Pam's case, Judge Gray instructed the jury, these transcripts are just a guide to the wiretaps. They are not to be considered evidence. If you are sitting there in the jury room deliberating and you can't tell what's being said on the wiretaps, and it doesn't make sense on the transcripts, you have to pay attention to what's on the wiretaps. That's a really confusing instruction for the jury. So my question again is, for those of you who are talking about listening to audio in a courtroom and not being able to understand it without transcripts, were those transcripts considered evidence or not by the judge? That's my question to you. And that was a charge. We found him guilty. Okay, so this is a follow-up. Amanda says that was a charge we found him guilty on. It was subordination of perjury. I do remember them saying the transcripts were not evidence. So this is still happening, and this is a problem. And that's why I think that Marion's study that she did is sort of groundbreaking and will be used in future and probably some of the past cases, because having the wiretaps, the audio themselves, that is evidence, right? But when you're saying this is a guide to that evidence, and it's not evidence, that should never be a part of how you're determining someone's guilt or innocence or not, or if they're not guilty. And that was the charge we found him. Regular people on regular juries don't always understand the weight of that instruction. Now I do, then I didn't. Exactly. And the thing is, and Amanda, you're saying that you guys found this person guilty. And I'm not saying that what you guys did is wrong or right, but you're telling me that you found them guilty on the piece of evidence that needed a guide to go along with it. And if the guide is written by someone who is not a neutral, not a neutral party, then there's automatically 100% confirmation bias and cognitive bias in that transcript. Because if the DA's office is writing a transcript to go along with evidence that they are providing to the court and to the jury, it's not even their fault. They're going to hear what they hear, and I'm going to hear what I hear, and you're going to hear what you hear. But if it's not a neutral party, then you're putting your thumb on the scale. That's pretty much what we're saying in the Pam Smart case.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tech question. There's an app, right? Because I'm looking in the browser right now and it's this small.
You look fine.
I know. I can't see you at all, and I can't see the comments. So I'll be right back.
Okay. She's technical issues this morning. We got this. So Amanda says they had to go home on night one, the lawyers, and brought transcripts back the next day on the case I sat for. So that's the thing. So they're making these transcripts overnight. They're not considered evidence, but they were used to convict somebody. So yeah, that's kind of scary to me. And Jess is saying, let's be honest, juries don't understand or follow many of the rules they are given, unfortunately. You're absolutely right. Nor do they. I mean, I think the part about them not understanding is really important because if
I'm back.
hi. Because if a jury is being told, "Hey, this isn't evidence, but you can use it," that's not fair. That's just not fair. So, the study, Jess, the study will come out after the habeas has been taken care of. So the habeas has been filed. Pam received a hearing date of the 27th of February, but then they postponed it because the state wants to be able to, respond. So the study is not out yet. But if you watch the documentary, you'll get a very good idea of what Professor Davidson did with this study. And I think it's
Does she
really important.
demonstrate it in the documentary?
She does. That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
So she has the three groups of study participants.
So they actually has the real people. She doesn't just explain it.
No, she shows and like on whiteboards and she plays the audio and she said, and basically she's like, she gives them a few seconds of the audio and says, "What do you hear?" And they all have to write down what they hear. And in each group, one group only has the wiretap audio, and the second group has the wiretap and the transcripts used in the trial, and the third group has the wiretap and transcripts that might sound like what's on the audio. And
Yeah.
and nobody can tell you what is being said. There's even she does an example with the group where she says, "What do you hear?" And one of them says something along the lines of "killed Greg." The other group says "sounded great" instead of Greg, and the third group is like, "I can't hear anything. I don't know what they're saying." So it shows you that the transcripts caused bias in this case. So
it's wild.
Yeah. Anyway, so you were in the middle of telling your story. So we were talking about Paul Maggiato, the prosecutor in this case, who became a defense attorney.
Yes.
An independent defense attorney in the state of New Hampshire. And you hired Paul Maggiato while you were having a bit of a contentious thing.
Yes.
So
I had no money. So, and just for your benefit, I'm not logged in, so I could log in, but I don't want to leave again. I can't see the comments. So, and I can't read them when you put them up because they're so small. You'll have to read them to me.
I will.
So he was the only lawyer I could find who was willing to take me per hour, like as a, instead of paying him a retainer, because I didn't have any money to pay him a retainer. So it was like, $275 an hour or whatever, instead of whatever it would have been. So I went to his office to meet with him, and he had the Pam Smart Concord Monitor headline up in a frame in his office wall, where it's like guilty, 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 and it's a picture of him going like this. So I was like, that's interesting. And remember, at the time, Kevin and I are writing true crime books, so I'm just always interested to talk to somebody who's a prosecutor. The prosecutors in New Hampshire, no shit, are very interesting because their win rate is very high because they are so, typically speaking, they're so conservative about prosecuting murder cases that their murder case win rate is high, because the bar in that office has always been like, they want to believe they have 110% of what they need in order to prosecute, which is why certain cases have never people have never been arrested. There's a case in Wolfboro, New Hampshire, where a woman, this case I'm fascinated with. I wanted to write a book about this. If we'd written another book, it would have been about this. 2020 did an episode on it. This woman who was a nurse, her teenage kids had kids sleeping over at their house. And on Mother's Day morning, they all woke up and she was dead in her bed. She'd been stabbed a whole bunch of times.
Oh, God.
And there are two very likely suspects. One was her on again, off again boyfriend at the time, and one of them was her ex-husband. And they both look bad, and they both have alibis, and they both, the husband has more likely he's like at a wedding in another state or whatever, but then it was, there's some question about that. But then he went on to stab somebody else later.
Oh, shit.
The boyfriend was staying, or her ex or whatever, was staying with his ex-wife, who is somebody who may have would likely have given him an alibi because she was the mother of his kids, right? So anyway, it's the whole thing. There's never been an arrest made in that case. I've always been interested in it because these prosecutors are generally conservative. I would not say Paul Maggiato fits in that camp.
No.
Um, so he is aggressive prosecutor, and he is fucking exactly what you want. If
Yes.
you want your ex-husband to actually listen to what you've been trying to say, and like he
Yep.
just won't because his wife is currently like, no, he's black
Yep.
and she's black. You go to court and Paul Maggiato is it there? Like it will never be
Yep.
bad. I mean, he'll never do it again. So he did this thing where he took out this, actually he used a whiteboard. He took out this
Of course he did.
giant calculator. You know that kind that old people use, or the buttons
Oh
like
yeah.
an inch
Oh
wide, the
yeah.
kind you had when you were a kid. He took out
Yeah.
this giant like child calculator and he put it on the stand in front of my ex-husband when he was on the stand. And then he opened the whiteboard in the courtroom, which was behind like a dartboard thing. And he was having my husband do math, like child support math or whatever. And he was like, okay, so take your salary, which is X, so put that in the calculator. And my poor ex-husband was sitting there like, boop,
Doop,
boop,
boop.
boop. It was so, the visual was so goofy.
That's what
And,
he's good at.
and then he wrote the number on the board. And he's like, okay, now subtract blah, blah, blah. And he was like, boop, boop, boop. And he like put that on the board. And I had my current husband, Kevin, was there, obviously. And it was like an exercise in public ritual humiliation what Paul
Oh yeah.
Maggiato did to my ex-husband. And now that we get along so well now, we're like good friends now. And we had this big come to Jesus talk a few years ago. And I
Yeah.
apologized to him. I was like, I'm really sorry that you went through that. And he's like, oh, it wasn't. It's like, I'm glad you did. It was actually my wife at the time. I'm like, I know. It was lovely. But yeah, he's who you want. So if you think someone's guilty, you want him. If you want to make your ex-husband have to
Hmm.
punch giant numbers in a giant calculator, you want him. He'll get you the result you want. Needless to say, my kids were always able to bring over their skis after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Paul Maggiato, like I said, he's a bulldog, but he has some strikes against him too.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I spent months trying to get in touch with Paul to get him on record for the podcast. And I ended up having a very lengthy, very contentious sort of interview with him. And then our interview spilled over into text for days and weeks later that I also was able to put in the podcast. But the reason why I was able to get Paul Maggiato on the phone is because I was like, hey, Rebecca, you don't happen to still have Paul Maggiato's number, do you? And I got it. And then, he agreed to
I
talk to
literally
me.
had it, right? I literally had it
Yeah,
like in
you
my
did.
phone. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You sent it over to me and I was like, fine, great. I can actually text this guy and be like, hey, I've been trying to get in touch with you. And he even so I had reached out to him via a work email, a personal email, Facebook Messenger, every place I could find him. No response. When I finally texted him, he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I never received any messages from you. And I'm like, Paul, come on. But we had a very contentious conversation. And as part of that, he said a lot of things that were wrong in the conversation, but that he was stating as fact.
Yeah.
And I was arguing with him. And then when I went to go do the work behind that and figure out if what he was saying was true, I found that he was wrong. And I was able to actually call him out on that and fact check him. And he conceded, which I
Yeah.
was shocked about. But outside of that,
He's not a bad guy.
no.
He's just an obstinate guy.
Well, and also, I think when he was a prosecutor, I think prosecutors want to win every case that's put in front of them, and they
Yes.
will not back down, and their
Yes.
ego gets in the way, and they
Yes.
also won't admit that they've made mistakes. I mean, Paul
Yes.
Maggiato, he had a murder conviction overturned in the state of New York when he was a prosecutor in Brooklyn. And the case that he had overturned was because he lied to the jury, and he put in false evidence against this guy in a murder
Damn,
conviction.
Paul.
I know. And then
Paul.
also, let's just get a little bit more gossipy. He also had a strike against him with the New Hampshire bar because in a very similar situation to your relationship with Paul, he ended up dating one of the women that he was representing in the middle of a divorce case.
That's right. I remember
And
that.
it's like public, it's on his bar record. So he's not perfect. He's made some mistakes, and what I see is, with the New York case, it's him willing to do whatever he can to win that case, and that sucks for people who are being convicted and sentenced to life without parole. So,
Yeah, the adversarial nature of the criminal legal system is the problem with the criminal legal. I mean, there's a lot
yeah,
of problems. There's systemic racism. There's money stuff. Poor people have no access to, defenses and whatever, but the adversarial nature of it is hugely problematic. And you think about the kind of people that become prosecutors, right? Like
Mhm.
there's you have to go to law school, obviously, which is very hard.
Right.
Hard to get into, hard to pass the
Yep.
bar. So you're already getting like a certain kind of doggedness, and you're sort of filtering down your kinds of people like as the process goes. But
Right.
then it's like you want to become a prosecutor. It's very much like a law enforcement mindset. It's very much
Mhm.
like
You are.
I want to put,
You're a top cop.
yeah, I want to put the bad guys away. I want to
Right.
help. I want to, all the things that law enforcement people say. And so, and then depending on how prosecutors are chosen where
Yeah.
you live. In my state, the attorney general is appointed. Sometimes they're elected. It's like a whole thing. Um, you have an office that is then it's also a political office. So it's political anyway.
Mhm.
It's a political office because it's an arm of the
Yep.
government and taxpayer dollars are paying for it. So the idea that you are not tough on crime or not putting the bad guys away becomes a political liability for the governor or the mayor or the depending
Sure.
on whatever the breakdown is in your state. So it's a messed up system in that way. It's good that it's government, but it's also bad that it's government because then it becomes political. So that's sort of
Yeah.
my thumbnail analysis of
Yeah,
good
for
old
sure. And
Paul, man.
Liz,
Polly
I know,
M.
good old Polly M. Liz said that they are always impressed by my investigating and gumption. I appreciate that. And then Jess has a really interesting comment too.
I can read it now because I put it up on the Minute Big. Transcripts are just one more
Okay.
issue. Okay. Yeah. Transcripts are just one
So,
more issue with bad evidence that's allowed. We continue to allow eyewitness identifications as reliable evidence, despite knowing how unreliable and problematic they are. They are unreliable, especially cross racial
well,
identifications.
and that's another issue that I thought they did a great job in the Nightline documentary because Matt, so they have like Nancy Grace on one side being like, here are the four guys who were convicted. And, she tells the audience that, Billy Flynn got 28 years to life. Patrick Randall got 28 years to life. Vance Latomy, who drove the getaway car, he got, I think it was 10 or 15 years to life. And then Raymond Fowler, who was just sort of along for the ride and didn't even know what was going on, he got like 8 years to life or something like that. So, and then she says, and this is when they all got out. So they have Nancy Grace explaining that the four boys who were actually there and actually murdered Greg Smart all got out before 2015 and before. And then it cuts to Matt, and Matt is like, these were 17-year-old kids who were being threatened with either the death penalty or life in prison without the possibility of parole. And so they signed plea agreements to throw Pam under the bus and
Of
to
course I
say
did.
that Pam was the one. And then you look at Cecilia Pierce, who never got a plea agreement, but was threatened with being charged just like the boys because she, in fact, helped the boys on two separate occasions get a gun to kill Greg Smart. The idea that she never was charged with anything because she was threatened into wearing a wire. So that was a really interesting point that you could see the juxtaposition there. Like Nancy Grace on one hand being like all the guy who she goes into detail with Patrick Randall, the guy who held Greg Smart's head back and held a knife to his throat, got out of prison in 2015. Pamela Smart, life without, because all of these witnesses, to Jess's point here, being unreliable and problematic, especially when they've been offered plea deals for second degree murder and not the death penalty or not first degree murder. Yeah, that's problematic. Cecilia Pierce is hugely problematic.
Yeah.
The one thing I wished that they had put in the documentary that we actually talked about in depth was there's one person who testified for the defense, who is one of the most important witnesses as far as I'm concerned, because it deals directly with the only piece of evidence that they actually have against her, which are the wiretaps. Brian Washburn, who was Greg's best friend at the time, and his girlfriend, Tracy. So Tracy and Brian were really like best friends with Pam and Greg, right? So they always hung out, they were always together. Brian Washburn testified at trial that Pamela Smart, within, like the weeks and months after Greg passed away, was increasingly frenetic, had been prescribed heavy anti-anxiety, anti-depression drugs, and was acting frenetic all the time. And in one case, she actually came over to his apartment and in front of him and his girlfriend Tracy said, "My lawyers have told me that Cecilia Pierce is going to wear a wire and that I'm not supposed to talk to her. But I'm going to talk to her and I'm going to trap her into telling me what happened. So Pam Smart says to a witness, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to act like I know what's going on tape with Cecilia Pierce. So she'll tell me information. So the cops will understand. This guy testified to this. His girlfriend, Tracy, wrote out an affidavit. She was supposed to testify as well.
So in that case, the tapes mean something completely different than what it sounds like.
Absolutely. But
just
why
like in the
was
Glitter Ball murders, the Glitter Ball City murders, just like that.
Yeah.
Which you haven't
so
finished
why
seeing.
I haven't finished it. I'm still in the middle of episode 1. Why wasn't that more important to the jury in the testimony leading up to the wiretaps, leading up to the transcripts? If she had a motive going in and said, this is clearly my motive, I'm going to lie and I'm going to say I knew more to see if Cecilia will tell me what actually happened, because the cops aren't telling me anything.
Did she have Sisty and Toomey? Was she Sisty and Toomey?
She did. Sisty and Toomey. One of the points of the habeas is that Toomey got up in his closing argument and told the jury that she was guilty of witness intimidation.
I did know that. Yeah.
That's a huge constitutional rights violation.
So Mark Sisty, for those who don't know, is the defense lawyer, I think, in all but one of the books I wrote with Kevin. Like, he is the guy who, if you commit a murder in New Hampshire or you're accused of murder in New Hampshire, you hire him. He has so much experience defending murders in New Hampshire, and his former partner Toomey became a judge, which is why he's no longer. Which I don't know if he's still a judge or not. But anyway, Sisty's a character. He raises turkeys. He's got a ponytail. He's this like very like hippie looking, rumpled old guy.
He still has that bald, like the bald patch in the back with the teeny tiny ponytail.
I know. So many defense attorneys have ponytails. There's a defense attorney ponytail, like Venn diagram, that I would love to make someday. But yeah, he's an interesting guy. We interviewed him many times.
Yeah. TC Nerd makes a very good point. That Pam, they say Pam could have listened to her lawyers and not talked with that person. You are absolutely right.
Pam had bad judgment. No one is saying Pam did not have bad judgment.
Pam was 22 years old.
Yeah.
And she was still working with a half a brain, because your brain doesn't fully develop until you are 25, 26 years old. And I'm convinced that sometimes people's brains don't develop until they're in their 30s. But if I told my 16-year-old, hey, don't go talk to that person because they're going to get you in trouble, they'd go and talk to that person. I understand the argument. I totally get it. You're absolutely right. She shouldn't have done it. But she is the kind of person that felt like she needed to take everything into her own hands to try to defend herself and figure out what happened to her husband. That's what she says. I do believe that. So I get what you're saying, TC Nerd, but I disagree with you to some extent. And
no one is saying it wasn't wrong that she had the relationship with the student.
No,
nobody is saying
absolutely
that.
Not. It was completely
no one would ever
wrong.
Say that. Yeah.
And she even admits to that. You know, they talked to her about her responsibility for Greg's murder in the documentary as well. And she has taken responsibility for his murder, because she has said this for 35 years. If I hadn't had a sexual relationship with an underage person, my husband would never have been killed. And that's what she's always said. You can believe whatever you want to believe, but that's what she has always said. This was an interesting comment. Viva La Eva said, I've been listening in the car and just got home, but want to add that I've done some certified legal transcription work, court stuff, decent audio. The tapped audio aspect is interesting. Yeah, I spoke with a certified transcriber, somebody who was independent. I think he was in like Colorado or someplace. And I talked to him about this case and he was blown away. He was like, it's unheard of to me that audio wiretaps that were accompanied by transcripts would not have a certified stamp on them, or that there would have been a voir dire or anything like that, you know? So yeah. Let's see. Let me just look at some of the comments here. I got my law degree from Judge Judy, but I'm pretty sure something someone tells you is hearsay and not admissible. Yes. Hey, everyone. I can't tell how late I am, but I hope not too late. I scrolled up a bit and saw something about a rumor going around that Richie Microdots is a PAC.
He's not.
We talked about this the other day. I think it was Monday. So Richie from Microdots has been tweeting that, and also the Coven, the foreskin ladies have been tweeting that they were the ones to get in touch with Greg Connor's office and give
Who's
him.
Greg Connor? Remind us who Greg Connor is.
Greg Connor is is one of the prosecutors in Michael Morrissey's office in Norfolk County, who just prosecuted the Brian Walsh case. He seems like a good guy. He was a good prosecutor. He is now running in opposition to Adam Deitch for the top job there in Norfolk County. So the coven reached out to Greg Connor and gave him Richie's real name, which is already out there. So I don't know what they think they were doing. They
Not a
thought they were
mystery.
being, yeah,
Yeah.
they were being smooth about it. Richie has been posting that Greg Connor's office is threatening to sue him and saying that he's a super PAC. But
Has he been
Rebecca, do
posting
you
that
want
they
to?
are Yeah, has he been posting that they are threatening him, or that he's heard a rumor that he's going to get the suit? I think that I've only seen that he's said that he's heard, not that they have
Yeah,
been telling him that.
the
I mean, I could be
semantics
wrong.
are, I mean, that's the problem. I think that honestly, this story is just about making news.
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything to it. So I think
right,
on both sides, like the Coven is like, look what we did. We got Greg Connor involved. And then Microdots is like, and like I love Richie, but Microdots is like, they're threatening to sue me and saying I'm a super PAC. So I'm gonna give $1,000 to Adam Deitch's campaign because
right,
Microdots made this video about Greg Connor. He
right.
also bought the website and created a website about Greg Connor. So I don't think anyone is getting sued, and Richie is not a super PAC. Do you want to explain?
Yeah, I can explain what a
For
PAC is. I think
Yeah,
he's
please
saying
do.
that they're going to call him a PAC, not a super PAC,
Oh, okay,
which doesn't matter.
PAC.
It doesn't
Sorry.
matter.
Yeah,
A super PAC is just a national, usually a larger national organization that doles out its stuff to various candidates. But a PAC is a political action committee. They have to register as such with the
hmm
Federal Election Commission, the FEC. They have to have transparency into their donors. So the PAC creation was the result of the Citizens United case, the Supreme Court case called Citizens United, which
yep,
determined that corporations are people, et cetera. There have always been political action committee-esque organizations around, but they were usually candidate affiliated, or
hmm
they were lobbyist affiliated. They had to have all these disclosures. The thing with
yep,
PACs is the limits on contributions to PACs are basically non-existent. There's just so many
because of
loopholes. There's so
Citizens
many
United.
because of Citizens United. So you can contribute a ton of money to a PAC, which then has to run. So usually a PAC supports one candidate or is against a candidate. Usually they're in support of a candidate, but they can run television ads. They can have signage. They can do all the things a campaign would do on behalf of a candidate. They can
Right.
actually be more aggressive than the candidate would be. And the law, I believe, says, I don't want to get it wrong, but it says something about how a candidate and a PAC cannot work together.
Right.
So if you're a PAC running an ad for, say, Kelly Ayotte, the governor of my state, you have to, at the end of your ad, say this ad is not affiliated with the Kelly Ayotte campaign, and that's why
Right.
you always hear in the end of campaign ads, this was brought to you by Kelly Ayotte for governor, which means she will endorse the own ad in the bottom, usually in her own voice, or so the PAC has to do the same thing. But the reason Richie is not a PAC is he is not registered
Did you see
with
that?
the FEC. Yes, go ahead.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, it's okay. He's not registered with the FEC, the Federal Election Commission. You also have to disclose your donations, everyone who donated to your PAC, to the FEC, and that's it. Like, you can't just call somebody a PAC and they're a PAC. And I don't know if the intimation is that because he's doing these things, he's acting like an unregulated PAC. Maybe that's what they're saying, but he certainly isn't a PAC. Now, I can't see any comments right now. So if you're commenting, I can't see it. But I will say that Microdots is a very interesting. It's funny because I often call the Coven and I call the Give, Send, Go fundraiser, the Defending the Truth fundraiser, I call them PR campaigns. Microdots is a PR campaign. He's doing PR campaigns on behalf of Karen Reed and her innocence. And he's taking the facts of the case as either he understands them or as he's been given them and making media around it. I mean, that's literally what propaganda is. Propaganda is media that's designed to influence your thinking. So he's a propagandist. There's nothing wrong with being a propagandist, just like there's technically nothing wrong with the Give, Send, Go campaign, defending the truth. But he's certainly not a PAC, not at all. So what I was thinking, Mel, when you were gone, was that is he being threatened to be called an unregulated?
Yeah, no, I heard what you were
I
saying.
can't hear
That's
you
a
now.
possibility.
I can't hear
Oh,
you.
you can't? Can you hear me now?
No,
Weird.
no, Mel, you shouldn't have peed.
All right, hold on.
You shouldn't have peed. Peeing fucked everything up. This is the most tech problem broadcast we've ever had, and I'm very sorry for that. This is the kind of thing that makes me bananas when I watch other people's shows and when I criticize other people for being bad broadcasters. We had we're doing an episode of the podcast I work on at NHPR called Civics 101 about the power of the cloth. It's about
Can you hear me?
people who are, nope, can't hear you still. It's about people who are in positions of religious power who are using their power to make political change. So we've been joking that we're going to get the Pope on. We're going to try to get the Pope on. And if we get the Pope on, the whole time he's going to be like this. Am I doing this right? Can you see me?
So you
Anyway, Mel, I
can't
still
hear
can't
me.
hear you.
What the fuck? What the fuck?
Nope. Comment if you
Right.
can hear Mel, because I cannot.
Can you hear me?
If they say they can hear you, text me and tell them it's me. Tell me it's me.
Oh, they hear Mel. They hear me.
They can hear you?
Yeah. What is happening over there?
I'm going to leave. I'll be back.
She's gonna leave again. I'm so sorry, you guys. This is ridiculous. Let's see. You guys can hear me, right? Yeah. My mic says it's working. My mic is working, so um that's good. Buying elect Greg Connor and using it to tell the real truth is epic trolling by Microdots. I agree. And I think that's what sort of set them all off. So um yep, I can hear her. Yes, 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 yes. God, this is so stupid. Yeah, I don't know if it's like a Wi-Fi thing over there, but anyway. Um, we are gonna eventually get into the Kouri Richins of it all. I don't know if you guys have been following this case. But Kouri Richins is on trial right now. She is the the mother of 3, who is accused of murdering her husband with a hold on a sec. Let me see if I can get her. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
What the fuck? This is
I
so
also went
weird.
portrait because it's just a little easier for me to see. And I also
Yeah.
signed in so I can see comments now.
Very nice. I was just getting ready to start introducing the Kouri Richins case, but I did want to talk about one other thing before we talk about Kouri Richins. But I was telling the audience that the Kouri Richins case is about the woman, mother of 3, who is accused of murdering her husband with a high dose of fentanyl.
In a
He
Moscow
d-
Mule, my favorite
you know,
drink.
maybe in a Moscow Mule. There's some debate about where it actually came from, but yes, that is possibility. She wasn't arrested until over a year later after her husband Eric's death, and in that year she wrote a children's book about grieving, and it was
As one
specifically
does.
about her husband and her boys. So we're going to get into that in a minute. But one of the things, oh, Allie said that she loves a Newslight. Yeah, let's do some housekeeping real quick. We didn't do it at the top. I aired Newslight again last night, so that was my second episode. I'm planning to stream Newslight every Wednesday at 7 p.m. I had Thomas the Union Plumber and Ellen Marsh back on again. I've got a little bit more diversity coming your way as far as opinions and people are concerned. I am looking for people who don't agree with me. So if you have suggestions for people who don't agree with me or might be on the opposite side of the political aisle, I would really love to hear from you with guest suggestions. That could be, big creators, or it could be like your uncle or your brother or your sister or whatever.
Why'd you get your uncles on, Mel?
No.
That was a joke.
Oh my God. That would be a fucking shit show, by the way. No. So yeah, if you know anybody, please let me know. I'm on the lookout for new guests. I have guests lined up for the next month or so. But a lot of them are still, sort of on the same political side as me. So I want to, branch out, obviously. That was the whole point of doing the show. But I wanted to say also, we've been getting a few tips in lately, and the tips have been really helping. I'm working on 3 shows right now. Rebecca is working on about 27 shows. So basically we it takes a lot to put this together, so I appreciate the tips. I really appreciate the memberships. And I also, if you can't do either of those things, it's totally fine, but if you could like, subscribe, share the video on your socials, or share the content on your socials. If you do become a member, Rebecca's going to send you stickers, but you have to put your name in the address, your name and address in the file that she set up. She's just going through all the stickers over there. Those are all the stickers that are coming your way if you have put your name in.
You're
You're
hot.
hot. You're hot. Hey, Karen, you're hot. I
We
still
gotta make a
cannot
Kevin
get.
from Southie. We gotta make a Kevin from Southie, like Jersey or something, like
We do. We do.
the best.
So one of the things that I did want to mention here, though, because this is definitely, oh, thanks, Rob, for gifting a membership. You're very sweet. One of the things I wanted to mention that is specifically related to the Kouri Richins case and our Something's Off channel is that, and this might be the end of me if I do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. At the end of this week, I'm going to spend the rest of this week getting caught up on the first week of the Kouri Richins trial. It's supposed to go on for 5 weeks. I think a lot of people suspect that she is guilty, but I do think the defense has some very good arguments, and there are some really interesting things happening there. I think it's probably, I think people are probably thinking she's guilty, and they're even thinking that more so than I would say Brian Walsh. So if that gives you any indication of what's
Well,
happening in
she is
this
a
case,
woman.
she is a woman. Um, so my plan, and I ran this by Rebecca, and I'm hoping she's going to be able to join me on some of these things. My plan is to cover the Kouri Richins case every day, starting next Monday, going forward. So week 2 of the trial. On Monday, I'll probably give Rebecca a sort of week 1 trial recap update, and the audience, you guys,
You're doing the readathon, but for this case, so maybe we can go on in the evenings for like a little bit, and you can tell me what happened that day.
absolutely. We could call it the Richathon. So that's what my plan is. Now, I'm not going to be one of those like law tubers who sits for 8 hours with the court stream going and narrating, or inserting my comments. I'm going to do what we did on the readathon, which is watch the trial and recap it for you guys. If you're interested in that, let me know. I guess whether you're interested or not, I'm still going to do it because I'm interested in this case and I think it's fascinating. And I'm really interested to see what the jury does. The judge is a young guy who I find really interesting as well. And there's already been a ton of drama in the way that the defense cross-examines some of these witnesses and in the way the prosecution is laying out this case. So it's very interesting. Starting next week, I'm going to be covering it every day.
Let's do it. And I will join you every time I can. I'll join you whenever I
Okay.
can. Maybe I'll join you every day.
That would be amazing. I mean, I think I would love to get to the point where we're able to stream every day. I just know that our schedules are so crazy sometimes.
You just tell me and I will try to make it work. You joined me on the readathon whenever possible, and we would just shift the time when we wanted to make it work. So
Yep.
we'll figure it out. I tape on
Hmm.
usually Wednesdays or Thursdays, Crime Writers. And we tape these are their stories, kind of an intermittent schedule. And I occasionally have work stuff, but I'll be able to do. Yes, Jess Machado would be interesting. I we can talk about it another time. It's funny because I was listening to uh somebody's stream the other day. Was the Turtle Boy stream or whatever? Somebody was talking about Jess Machado. It's funny.
Yep.
Jess Machado is one of those people that like I whenever I've listened to her tangentially or whatever, it's like if she didn't have some of the stances that she had, like I feel like we would get along maybe.
Right. Yeah.
But some of her stances are so it's like human rights stuff, not like
Mhm.
political
Mhm.
stuff. And she doesn't seem to have the tolerance for being around it. And that's
Yeah.
different to me than not disagreeing with it. I mean, she had this post when she went to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It was the No Kings protest day, and it was Pride Month. And she had
Mm.
this tweet about just having it in her face, like
Yep.
gay people, like being in her face, whatever. Like,
Yep.
why? I didn't realize I wouldn't have gone if I had known. And it's like, I'm sorry that you have to share the air with people that you don't like. But like
Right.
that to me is I don't know. So if she'd be willing, I would definitely watch it. But
Yeah, I think it would be interesting. I mean, but I don't know if it would be all that constructive. I don't know if
you
it
never
would
know. You
be.
never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never know.
But it's an interesting idea, and if you guys think that that should happen, let Jess Machado know, and I would love to have her come on. I want to have people. I don't want to have arguments. I don't want to be screaming at each
And
other like
I
they
would love
do.
to be wrong. I would love to be wrong about
Yeah.
that.
I would love to be convinced, of your opinions and why you think the way that you do. And if I can't be convinced, then I want to have a good, honest, ethical debate about it. So I've been seeing a little bit more of that, and it's giving me hope because honestly, every single night on the CNN, on Abby Phillips' show, Newsnight, it is no one is listening to one another. They come with their talking points that have been given to them by their parties for the most part, and they scream at each other and they interrupt each other over and over. I mean, and they all have this media training and this tactic that they do. And I noticed it started with Kellyanne Conway back in like 2015. So I'm talking right now and I'm making a point. And what happens is Rebecca disagrees with my point. So she starts to interrupt me and we both continue our points. We never break. And so what you're hearing is me continuing to talk with somebody
And then
else
you're hearing me continue to talk at the same time. Go
at the
ahead, Mel,
same
keep
time.
talking.
And what I'm trying
And
to
then
do is tell my point of
yeah.
it.
But
And
seriously,
it's
for
like,
real.
it's so ridiculous. That's what you hear every single night on Newsnight. I don't want to do that. I want to have honest conversations. And I'm really sick of this weird, you can see the media strategy. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm doing on Newsnight. That's what I'm hoping to do here on Something's Off. I'm going to put up my regular episodes on the In Between podcast on Tuesdays. So we have a lot going on. And Rebecca, like I said, she's got 100 different shows that she's doing. So, oh, good, Amanda. Amanda's here. Everybody thank Amanda for doing time code for our episodes and doing the
Chapters.
breakdown. Yeah,
Thank you,
chapters. I love
Amanda.
it.
You're the best. You're the very, very best.
The
And by
hysterectomy,
the
I
way, I'm
can
not trying to, I just want to be clear. I'm not trying to start a beef with Jessica Machado. I'm not interested in
no,
getting
no,
involved in that
no,
drama. I
no.
think it would be an interesting, like it could be interesting.
Yeah.
I also understand that my exposure to a lot of people is based on 30 seconds of them that I have encountered in my life. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that's hypocritical to sort of say, because of that 30 seconds, I'm writing them off forever. I'm not willing to do that. So I would
Yeah,
love to be open-minded about that. And,
for
open
sure.
my, yeah. Oh, I'd have a beer. I'd have a beer with almost anybody except for Cowboy Fan 105, who definitely watches this
Oh,
show, by the way.
Chris Albert, right?
Yesterday,
That's
I
it.
don't know if it's Chris Albert. Some people say it is. Yesterday, somebody on Twitter was saying, you admit that you don't know everything, and yet you spout your opinions so confidently as if you do. And I'm like, you shouldn't trust anybody who says that they know everything. Like, you just should not. What I admit is that nobody knows everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes people make errors, but I certainly know a fuck ton about the Karen Reed case because I watched
Yep.
both trials, gavel to
Mm-hmm.
gavel, and because I have been exposed to a lot of the evidence, and because I have seen how the anti Karen Reed people use similar tactics like the ones you're talking about
Yep.
to try and make points based on things that are not facts. Anyway,
Yep. Um, Allie in Texas says she's controversial. Controversial. You either love her or hate her. I like her, but skip all of her political BS. Rebecca, I didn't know about her stuff with LGBTQ plus. I'm now rethinking listening to her.
that was
People
based
can
on
have their
tweets.
opinions.
That was
Yeah,
based on tweets. So who knows?
people can have their opinions. I disagree. Obviously, I'm part of the LGBTQ community, as you all know. It's one of the
You
things
are?
that I am. Oh shit! Did I just come out to you again, Rebecca? You know what, Rebecca? Gay people have to come out every day of their lives.
Can you be my one gay friend that I'm like, I have gay friends and
I'm
they're
not
okay.
anti-gay.
I'm not
I have
anti gay.
Mel.
I have gay friends.
Look, here's my gay. Like you could say that, like Trump
Can I
says.
do that?
Look,
Can I use you for
there's
that?
my black guy. Look, there's
Yeah.
my black guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the, it's one of the things about that community, the FKR community, that bothers me. But it also gives me hope. I will say that because, you and I have talked about this a lot. There are so many racist, MAGA, anti-LGBTQ people in the FKR community. And at the same time, we are on the same side about one thing, and that is that Karen Reed is not guilty. And we believe that there is some corruption happening within the Massachusetts State Police and the Norfolk District Attorney's Office. So I can be on the same side as you and have completely different opinions and be socially on like polar opposites. But it's one of the things that pisses me off about Turtle Boy. It's one of the things that pisses me off about Jess Machado. Like, I feel like sometimes we've reverted back to like 90s high school when people are like, you're so queer. That's so gay. Oh, look how gay they are. You know, it's just so fucking stupid. But
Or the retarded, which comes out all the time.
yeah, that happens a lot too. And it's just like, that word is like being reclaimed for some reason. And I don't understand it.
People feel like they lost a human right when they lost,
Yeah.
when they were being, you know, this is the whole thing. Like, I am not a huge fan of language policing. That being said, if I learn that a word really hurts people's feelings, I will stop using that word. Like, that's
Sure.
the only reason. It's like, and sometimes, but but there is a spectrum of reasonableness. Like, if someone told me that the word duck hurt their feelings, I would not stop saying it unless there was a valid reason why. I mean, sometimes you learn that expressions have really racist origins, like off the reservation, you know, that has a super racist origin.
Yeah.
Like, you know, calling people gypsies, like the whole, like, I've been gypped, that has racist implications. There's some that are controversial that no one knows it's true, like chocolate jimmies. Nobody knows if that's actually racist or not. But I'm just like, why don't we just not use, but I mean, my whole thing with jimmies is, how about we just don't, because I don't know. You know, but then sometimes it's like, for a while, I mean, people who claim ableism are very often people who do not have disabilities. And so, you know, there are some things like, you know, I use this word as a crutch when I can't think of what I'm thinking about. And people will be like, well, that's ableist because some people need to use crutches all the time. And I'm like, that feels to me like maybe a little bit too far, because I've used crutches in my life, and I know what it's like. It's like there's a weird spectrum. But the R word, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Diane says, why is talking about sexual preference mandatory in every conversation? I don't recall ever talking about sexual preference. Do you, Rebecca?
No,
we're not
well,
talking
I do
about
love straight
sexual.
bears. I do love straight
Yeah,
bears.
that's true. I don't recall ever talking about sexual preference. So I'm kind of confused, Diane, about what you're talking about, but you know, let me know. People always take things too far, Amanda says. Agreed. Oh geez, Cynthia. Cynthia says, good morning. I'm so late. What I've missed. There a lot, quite a bit. We've talked about a lot since we've been here for the past hour and 15, but you can go back. You can actually, if you go back while we're live, you'll just get caught up.
So many tech issues though.
We had a lot of tech issues.
Yeah.
We had
That's
a
why I'm
lot
on
of
my
tech
phone right
issues.
now.
Yeah.
Hey, can I tell you what oh, go ahead. You have to tell me about this case.
I'm going to tell you about the case. There's two things I want to talk about, but you were going to say something. You were going to tell me something about your day. Like I know you have to get out of here in a little bit.
It's not important. I have to leave my house at about 11:30.
Okay.
A dress fitting for my son's wedding. And I have
Henry's wedding?
yes, and I have a big dilemma, which is that I now have 2 dresses.
Uh-oh.
So, yeah. I have 2 dresses because I bought the first dress. It is beautiful, but my fittings weren't going super great, and I wasn't very happy with how it was turning out because I have the girls, and it's strapless. And then so I was like, I'll buy a backup dress. Backup dress came in. I loved it. So I brought that to my tailor the next time. And that time my fitting on the first dress looked amazing. So now I have 2. And I'm going today to try to have them. I'm just getting them both fitted as if I'm wearing them both. So that's a dilemma. But
I don't know if I'd ever have that dilemma. So it's interesting to hear about it.
Stewart update. Stewart is fucking fine. He's like bounced 100% back to his half self lifestyle. Like, he sleeps all day. He's ticking. Yes, that's why I was going to ask. You need to see and weigh in on. I am considering doing that. I'm considering putting it out here on this stream so you guys can help me decide.
Okay.
We'll see.
I love it. The only other thing I want to talk about before we talk about Kouri Richins is something that happened with the DOJ this week. I'm not going to get into the politics of it. I just would really love your opinion on it. So NPR first reported, and then MS Now backed up the reporting, and then finally the New York Times,
Wall Street Journal as well,
and the Wall Street Journal have backed up the reporting of NPR. An independent journalist. Oh crap! Now I can't think of his name. He's great. Stolenberger, I think is something like that. NPR first reported that upon going through the Epstein files, the index of the Epstein files shows 4 separate interview files that happened with the FBI and a 13-year-old victim. Obviously, this happened 35 years ago. She was no longer 13, but at the time, she was a 13-year-old victim who accused Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump of violently raping her. And so the index shows these 4 files of the interviews with the FBI, and they're 302s. But the actual files only show one of those interviews, and it's heavily redacted. So NPR is accusing, and they verified, as far as I understand, the DOJ from withholding and removing information, bad information about Donald Trump in the Epstein files. Now, the
50
DOJ,
pages.
what?
50
53
pages.
pages.
Yeah,
53 pages.
I'm looking at the article right now. Yeah.
So the DOJ is saying, no, we didn't do that. But here's the complicated bit about it. The reason we know these files exist is because they were given to Ghislaine Maxwell in discovery for her trial. So the context, I think, matters here, because the implications are that if Ghislaine Maxwell and the Department of Justice have had access to these very incriminating files, but the public doesn't and the Congress doesn't, then why are they hiding those files from the public? And then the second tier to that is that if Ghislaine Maxwell has access to these files that actually incriminate Trump, she can use it as leverage to get a pardon.
Get clemency. Yeah. So the thing that I think has gotten lost in this is that this is a law that the president signed. It was a law that was a bill that turned into a law in a week. It's one of the
He
fastest.
had to sign it.
He did, though. He did sign it. So the bottom line is he signed it. So it is a law. And it's a law that was a bipartisan law that everybody wanted to happen, was the full release of all these documents. So the bottom line is what they did here in withholding files is actually against the law. It's against the law that the current president of the United States signed into law.
Mhm.
So that's how I feel about it. It's against the law. It's also, there's been so much about the files where it's like something's up and then it's down and then it's up again and it's down. And when you have millions of pages, like, people don't understand, like, that is, I mean, people understand
6 million.
theoretically how much 6 million are, but they don't really, it's that when you get into the millions, the numbers are actually impossible to comprehend. Like, it would take like years to read or whatever. And so it would seemingly be easy to take things down. But the problem is, the way the internet works is that every file is an indexed page, like in a CSS situation, and you can look at the code and compare. You can have AI compare the codes or whatever and see that things have been taken. So that's how people are finding this out. I think it's shady, and something's off there, is what I think.
Something is very much off there. I just don't know what's going to be done about it. Like, it seems to me that the DOJ has been flouting the law since it was signed into being, and nothing's really happened. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I find it interesting. Okay, let's get into Kouri Richins and what we know so far, what I know so far. I want to make it clear to the audience, I have not been covering this case. I've not been following the case until maybe a week ago. So I'm still getting sort of, the information is coming to me and I'm sort of sifting through everything. The court is the trial is going to help me work everything out. I know that channels like Melanie Little and The Lawyer and Brother Counsel have all been covering this trial, and they're doing a great job. I think also Sam Beningo, did I say it right?
Yes.
Sam Beningo.
Yes.
Has also been covering it from her perspective of, psychology and everything that she is trained to look for. She made some really interesting points about the first day of the trial, or maybe the second day, where a piece of evidence came in that she is able to really tear apart based on her experience. And I found it interesting. So I'd go watch her stream if you can. This is what I understand of the case, Rebecca. Kouri Richins is I don't want to call her a real estate agent. She's in real estate. I'm not sure. I've seen reports. This is Kouri.
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
Yeah. I've seen reports that Kouri Richins had her own real estate agency. But from what I know of real estate, having been one myself, it takes a really long time to become a broker. You don't just become a broker when you become a real estate agent. So what I am going to call her is a real estate agent. And what she wanted to do with her career was take these like multi-million dollar properties in Utah and flip them and make a bunch of money, right? She's married to Eric Richins, who is a stonemason who has a good deal of money, it seems like. But Eric is completely responsible for all of their finances. So he basically handles everything and doesn't really let her touch anything. That was like sort of the beginning contention in their marriage. They have 3 young children, and Kouri was basically sort of obsessed with the idea of becoming rich, and I don't want to say famous, but at least becoming rich. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm not judging her whatsoever. What I understand is that in the middle of their sort of the contentious part of their marriage, she may have forged documents forged documents in Eric's name in order to get loans to buy this, I think, 3 point something million dollar mansion.
Yeah, I saw that she's like $3.5 million in debt.
Yeah, yeah. And so she purchased this mansion, and it literally needed to be like completely renovated from the ground up. It's an amazing space, but she did this, and she did it without Eric's knowledge. My main question here, this is where I'm going to insert one of my opinions, maybe, is how does a spouse not know that their partner purchased a $3.5 million mansion? Or maybe that it's not that he didn't know that she purchased it, but how does he not question how she came up with the money to purchase it?
Yeah.
That's my first question. This sort of led to a conversation, I think, in their marriage where he started getting antsy and starting to think that she wasn't telling him the truth about finances and things like that. So he went ahead and he changed his power of attorney to his sister, who he was very, very, like, they were best friends. I've heard a lot of people report that he and his sister were so close and that they talked about their sex lives, which people are judging them for. I find that to be really strange. Like, if you're really close to one of your siblings, you're allowed to talk about your sex life. It's just weird to me that you wouldn't. But
yeah, I mean, I think that put it through this lens. Would you talk to your sibling who's the same gender as you, with your about your sex life, right? Would two sisters talk about their sex life? Sure. Would two brothers talk
sure.
about their sex life? Sure. Would a brother and sister talk about it? Why the fuck not?
Right.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
that was a strange thing that everybody always like it reminded me of that moment in the Karen Reed trial when Jen and Carrie, the morning John is missing, they go with Karen to John's house and they make note that she didn't take her boots off. It's the same
Yes.
kind of thing. It's a
Yeah.
judgment on demeanor and things like that. So basically, in the midst of this marriage strife, which apparently they were trying to work it out, Kouri starts having an affair with somebody. And there are text messages. So there's a lot of data in this case again. There are text messages between her and her boyfriend, where she's talking about, I'm so excited to work on this property with you. And I just bought this property and let's just go do this and get rich and be happy. Let's take this vacation here. Eventually, I think I'd like to marry you. It was a pretty serious relationship. And I'm paraphrasing all of that. At one point, a couple of weeks before Eric dies, there's an incident where I believe it was like a date night, maybe. I can't remember for sure. But Kouri gets him lunch. It might have even been Valentine's Day. Kouri gets him lunch from like this place. He eats whatever she gets him for lunch. He gets incredibly sick. And he ends up recovering the same day. And he ends up being fine enough to take the boys to soccer practice. But the prosecution is positing that was Kouri's first attempt at poisoning her husband. Now, getting into the details of the poisoning, from what I understand, the prosecution has text messages between Kouri and a local drug dealer, who I believe might have even been like a housekeeper that she knew or something like that.
I thought it was their housekeeper.
It might have been their housekeeper, about getting drugs, getting fentanyl, as far as I understand it. And after the 2-week incident, Kouri is texting the housekeeper, the drug dealer, I want something stronger. Can you get me something stronger? Right. So they have those text messages, it appears. And then so 2 weeks later, Kouri says they're having a date night at home and she makes him a Moscow Mule and they are drinking. Once they didn't finish the drinks, but she put the drinks in the sink half full. She goes that night and sleeps in the bedroom with her little boys. And then she wakes up and she goes to get into the marital bed. And when she gets into the marital bed, she finds her husband, Eric, cold and not breathing. And there is a 911 call. So Kouri calls 911. The 911 call, I don't think it does her any favors. I'll say that. It sounds rehearsed to me. She has no urgency in this call.
And
Now
as you know, I don't like demeanor stuff, so I would never put any weight on that. Yes.
I was just about to say.
That's why I don't watch Samantha Beningo.
I know. People handle grief and people handle these situations differently, so we can't really totally judge her, but it was my gut went, "Oh, this doesn't feel right."
Your gut doesn't mean jack, Mel.
I understand that, but I'm trying to think about like what a jury is hearing as well. So
okay, that's fair. It's fair to say how you're perceiving it because a jury might perceive it that way. But we all need to know our guts mean jack shit.
Absolutely. It's all based in our confirmation bias and it's based in our previous, our history.
Our guts mean something in our personal lives, but they mean jack shit when it talks to how other people are. That's what I meant to clarify.
Sure. So she calls 911. They come out, they declare that Eric has passed away. At that point, as I understand it, a bunch of family members are at the house. So it's like a JonBenet kind of scene when JonBenet Ramsey is missing and they invite all their friends and family over to what ends up being the crime scene. So the crime scene is a mess, obviously. I feel the same thing. Yeah.
Very, very common. My friend died a few years ago, dropped dead of a heart attack in their living room. And my friend who was married to him, 53, was very sad, invited a bunch of people over while his body was still there. Just to be with them, just to sort of be with them and comfort them while they're waiting for the coroner to take the body away. That's actually a very common response.
That happened here. So, obviously the defense is going to attack the crime scene because the cops who have testified so far that I've seen did not do a great job on the crime scene. They didn't test the Moscow Mule that's sitting in the sink. It's gone.
And it was it still half, the cup still half full?
Yes.
That's an interesting detail. That's an interesting detail to me.
The Moscow Mules were sitting in the sink half full. The cops didn't even look at them. And they sat there until the housekeeper came, picked them up, and put them in the dishwasher.
That is fucking interesting. Because if you, now granted, gut means jack shit. That being said, if I poisoned Kevin.
Yes.
And
which you would never do.
Which I would never do. Which, by the way, if he gets poisoned now, this is going to be used as evidence against me. If I were to poison Kevin by putting something in his 7 and 7, which is I'm a Moscow Mule, he's a 7 and 7.
I was a 7 and 7. Yep.
He loves him. He loves him the 7 and 7. He likes the cheapest. He loves Seagram's. He loves cheap ass like whiskey and stuff. It's like his whole thing. He gets a Manhattan with Seagram's in it. Like he gives no shits. Anyway, so I would make him the drink, have him drink it, wash the glass, and then make another drink and pour it out. So that if they tested the glass, it would just be that drink in there.
Okay, well,
that's what I would do.
You've said that. Yep.
Or I would put his glass in the dishwasher and have a clean glass and make a drink in it and then pour it out. That's what I would do.
So here's where it gets even more convoluted because to me, if she leaves the glasses in the sink and calls 911 and she knows the cops are coming, there's no consciousness of guilt. There's no consciousness of guilt. And then we have to add in another thing to this, right? So Eric apparently
we don't know that she didn't do what I just said I would do and that there were 2 no fentanyl drinks in that sink.
Sure, absolutely. But here's where it gets more convoluted. So apparently Eric was, I don't want to say a big user, but he was nightly user of THC gummies, right? So I take gummies at night. Yeah, same. Most people I know are. The cops did find gummies in commercial packaging from, like an actual pot store, like a dispensary, all over the house. They also found a bunch of gummies without packaging in like kind of suspicious packaging. And um, he had just returned from Mexico, where he often bought gummies because they were cheaper and easier to get, and brought them back.
Mhm.
So this is making it convoluted because there are so many different things that could have happened here. If I'm looking at it from what I just explained to you as a jury member, I'm sitting here going, well, if she was guilty, she would have done something about those Moscow mules, which she didn't, but the police never tested them, so who knows? And also, maybe he got THC gummies from Mexico and they were laced with fentanyl.
But was there any THC in the system? So one of the comments is saying there wasn't any THC in the
There
system.
there was no THC in his system.
Fentanyl, yes.
Fentanyl, yes. So
Interesting.
who knows? So that's where we are. And so the family comes over. His sister, he's already told his sister. Now, remember, his sister is the power of attorney, recently changed power of attorney. He also, I believe, changed his will, if I remember correctly. His sister, he has already told his sister that he thinks that Kouri is trying to hurt him. So she comes to the house with that knowledge. The three boys are there. The sister testifies. Here was in a moment in the testimony that I was like, ooh, this is interesting. The sister testifies that Kouri really didn't care much. She was, her whole demeanor was not what it should have been that morning. She was wearing like a really nice sweatsuit, had her hair done, wasn't very emotional. And when his sister got there, she like sort of broke down and fell to the ground, and Kouri could have given two shits. And then the defense on the cross examination, they get up and they show her video of that morning, ring video of
Mhm.
Kouri wearing some sort of like dumpy pajamas. Hair is a mess in a bun. And when the sister drops to the floor, Kouri drops to the floor next to her and grabs her and is consoling her. So the
Mhm.
sister has now just misremembered that morning on the
Yeah.
stand.
Yeah.
And I found that really interesting. The defense is doing a good job. Um, so the case is being investigated, but I don't believe that Kouri was the main suspect. She was probably the main suspect because they always make the spouse the main suspect to go with, but it was a year and a half or so before she was charged with anything. And in that year and a half, she was telling the story, I think he must have gotten it from the gummies. I think he must have gotten it from the gummies. Now, when you asked me about the THC levels, here's the thing. I'm not a doctor. I am not a psychologist. I don't prescribe medicine to anybody. But when you smoke pot or take gummies, THC is in your system for a very, very long time because it's stored in your
Yes.
fat cells, right? So
Yes.
it's stored in your fat cells to the point where even if you quit like cold turkey, you don't
Yes. It takes a
ever,
long
ever,
time.
you could go like it pops back up in your system. You could be at zero levels, but if you change your diet or you change your exercise routine because your fat cells are changing, THC can actually pop back up. So I'm
Mm.
interested to know because Corey's not the only one who says that Eric was a regular user of, pot gummies. So I'm interested to understand why there's no THC in his system. There should be THC in his system, regardless of whether he took it that night or he didn't. It would be in there from days earlier.
Do you think that, are you positing that there's some funny business going on with the lab results?
I'm
That
not.
they're
I just don't
inaccurate or
understand it. I
yeah,
don't understand why there wouldn't be THC in his system.
yeah,
It doesn't matter if he took it 12 hours before. If he
yeah.
took it a week before, it would be in his system.
Oh yeah. If he had taken it 2 weeks, but that's the whole thing
Yeah,
you tell your kids. Like, you got to quit smoking. If you're gonna have a job that has like a pot test, you got to quit smoking or doing gummies or whatever like months before the job because
months.
it's yeah.
Or you have to there's a way to get around it. I mean, we
But even
used to
his
like
sister says he did THC. Like that was a known thing.
I don't know if his sister said it, but I know that it's a known thing that he did. I mean, they were all over the house too, and that's what he would do when he would go to Mexico. Like there are witnesses to that.
Yeah.
So and there was, I don't know if it's rumored or if it's factual, but he was a stonemason. He had issues with his back, and so he was taking pot gummies to ease the pain in his back.
Yeah.
So
Could
so
have also
there's
been
that.
taking fentanyl to ease the pain in his back.
Right.
By the way,
Exactly.
I know nothing about this. I'm literally looking at my iPad right now, looking at headlines. Like that's what I'm
Yeah.
looking at. With what I'm hearing about it,
Hmm.
somebody with a pain issue could also have a fentanyl issue.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, if you're watching Young and the Restless right now, Nick Newman is taking fentanyl because he's
Uh-huh.
got an issue with his leg and no one knows yet, but it's very fucking obvious because he's
It's
acting like a
very
tweaker.
well, and also think about, uh, There's Something Wrong with Auntie Diane. Do you remember that
The sister
documentary?
says that only Kouri used a THC. Yeah, of course I remember that. I mean, yeah, that
So
documentary.
in that documentary, for the audience who's not seen it, There's Something Wrong with Auntie Diane is a story about, a woman who, caused this horrific crash on the
Merritt Parkway by driving
Merritt.
backward.
Was it Merritt?
I
I thought
believe
it
it was
was
the
the
Merritt Parkway.
Catonic?
Taconic Parkway, right, by
Taconic.
driving by driving in the wrong way. Yeah.
Driving the wrong way, going like 70 miles an hour with her own children and her nieces and nephews in the car with her, caused many people to die, including many of the kids, except for one of her sons, and she died herself. And the toxicology report says that Diane was drunk and had THC in her system. No one in her life knew that she drank, and no one in her life really knew that she, like, occasionally she would smoke pot. So it reminds me of this again. If Eric was having extreme pain in his back and was taking a low dose of fentanyl or a low THC gummy, whatever it might be, and no one knew about it, that makes a lot of sense to me. So
Mm.
I do feel like there are some holes. There are some points of doubt. Within the year and a half or so that before Kouri was charged, she wrote a children's book for her sons about grieving their father. And she was doing I want to say it was like a local media tour about the book. And she was getting a lot of, press and things like that. So, people are going to say she was trying to make money off of her husband's death, the whole $3.5 million mansion, trying to get access to his life insurance, trying to get access to all of that. That argument is sort of like tale as old as time. I totally understand it. It's reasonable. And then she was arrested and charged. His whole family is obviously against her. I think most of the world is against her. I think with good reason, but I think that there's plausibility here. There are some big holes that we need to figure out. And I'm really, really interested in hearing what happens in the trial from these witnesses. I think the defense is already doing a good job to impeach some of these witnesses. Um,
Is there a
so,
world in which she did kill him, but not with fentanyl?
yep.
Because like
Oh,
she
I don't
she
know.
she could have used like succinylcholine, which
Hmm.
is it's a woman's murder weapon. That's
Right. Well,
but
poison
Laura,
is a
yeah,
woman's
Laura,
murder weapon.
that's so it's so funny people call it that.
Yeah.
But Laura, and I don't even know if that's statistically true, but it's something that
Right.
somebody said once and everybody says it. But Laura Bricker wrote a book where a woman killed her husband using that. I think it was the woman that killed him. And it's a drug that it causes like instant paralysis. They use it for surgery, but it metabolizes so quickly that it doesn't come out in blood tests after you're dead. And it also doesn't, it also it like I guess disappears from whatever you may have mixed it in as well. I don't know. But
Mhm.
apparently so I mean, that's what I'm wondering is there a world in which she no, these are their stories is only audio. So is there a world in which she killed him, but not with that? Because if you think about it, which I am, because
Uh-huh.
I am Nancy Drew. Uh, if she killed him in some way, but it wasn't that way, but they were looking only at toxicology and they found things in the toxicology, that's what they would go with right away, right?
Yep. Yep.
But it makes sense to me now, knowing nothing, and this sounds very very shady. I'm not saying she's not guilty because I don't know.
Mhm.
It sounds like the chain of obtaining drugs is not. I mean, I know that there with the housekeeper had a dealer and that's like a witness too or something. I read in a couple articles about it, but it sounds like the THC thing is the big question.
Yeah.
But yeah, but
I mean,
it's also very possible, not very possible. It's also possible in some world that he died of fentanyl overdose that was self-inflicted.
could
Not
be. I
hard.
mean,
It's not hard to die from
but
tainted fentanyl.
so here's the thing. If they didn't test the Moscow Mule cup, um, and they don't know how the fentanyl was administered,
Yeah.
then is she not guilty?
I mean, if they have a theory of the case, so this is what happened in the Karen Reed trial. They had a theory of the case that the state could not prove. Okay.
Right.
So if they have a theory of the case that the state cannot prove, a jury could very well find her not guilty. So, when I first started following the Karen Reed case,
Mhm.
I had it in my mind that
he may have died a slightly different way than what they're claiming, but it doesn't mean she wasn't responsible. Like I had that in my
Mhm.
mind before I knew anything about anything.
Yeah.
The state's theory did not happen. Like it just didn't happen. It was a bad hypothesis. It's not provable, all
Yeah.
that stuff. In this case, it sounds like they have a hypothesis that they
Mhm.
can't prove, but juries very often don't care about that because
Right.
juries weigh circumstantial evidence very highly. And if she was having an affair,
Mhm.
a lot of people have affairs who never kill their spouses. So I don't see affairs as
But people
a motive.
convict
Yeah,
because you had an affair.
correct. Because they
Pamela
put
Smart.
that moral judgment on you and that adds to whatever they thought about you. If she had debt, that would be added to
Mhm.
the pile. If
And let
she
me just
had,
interrupt you really quickly because Lauren's making a great point. This is a fact of the case. They had a prenuptial agreement, which if they got divorced, Kouri would get nothing, but if he died, she would get something. So
she's a
that's
very unlucky. If he died and she didn't kill him, she's very unlucky because all the
yeah,
circumstances point to her.
yeah. So yeah, I think it's a really
Why are
interesting
people
case.
so interested in this case? Like, why? What is the hook? Like, is it a
I
woman
think
killed
it's
her husband,
salacious.
or
I think
yeah?
it's the same thing. I mean, think about the Brian Walsh case. Think about the Pamela Smart case. Think about any
There's
case that
money.
involves. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, think about Karen Reed. There's money, there's infidelity, there's murder. At least we think murder. And then she went and wrote a children's book and tried to get famous. So I think that she is a complicated um suspect. I don't know if all of that stuff means she did it. I know that juries might be swayed by that, of course. I mean, and it's a jury in Utah, which means that they could have very deep religious leanings. So,
Is it a complicated? Is it a complicated victim too? Is he a complicated? Was he
I don't think he is.
not a great
Honestly,
husband? Was he like what? Is there something
no, it doesn't
complicated
seem
about him?
that way. It sounds like he was like an amazing dad. He was successful. And he may have been taking THC gummies, every night, but that's not, anything.
There
Um,
wasn't any THC in his system allegedly.
well, that's a conundrum.
That's weird.
Yeah, yeah. Um, the investigation was shoddy again. The crime scene was awful. Let me just go through some of these comments right here. So Cynthia is saying this is another thing that people keep bringing up. Kouri's mom was there the night before, went home, and then came back when Kouri called her in the morning. I don't know if that's suspect.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know.
The paramedic
Yes,
said his blood sugar was at 458.
yeah. Frank is saying it wasn't a crime scene yet, so they didn't know what or how he died until later. I get that, but they still should have been. I mean, the cops that they have examined so far on the stand, they were categorizing and cataloging the medicines that were in the house. So they were
Hmm.
starting to think along those lines.
Yeah.
Um, and so I know that it wasn't necessarily a crime scene, but it was an unattended death,
Yeah.
meaning that Kouri wasn't in the room when he died, supposedly,
Yeah.
allegedly.
Yeah.
She came in and found him cold.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Are they Mormon? Someone says the Mormon adjacent crime. Are they Mormon? This is no bearing on
That I
anything.
don't know.
I mean, they were
I don't
drinking,
know.
so they
Right. They were
weren't
drinking and
observant
doing
if they were.
drugs and having sex outside of the marriage. So, um,
Oh,
yeah.
if you watch
So,
Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, you know those people have sex outside the
yeah, of
marriage.
course they do.
It's the
I know.
drinking and the drugging. It's like the oh my God. Mormon TikTok is so fucking funny. The
Oh,
kinds of
yeah.
like workarounds they try to do to like have like they'll put a coffee creamer in a can of Diet Coke to make it taste more indulgent because like they always need to have something good because they're not allowed to drink. And
Oh, my
but they
God.
they have all these like elaborate workarounds around it. It's very funny.
Mm-hmm.
And also you shouldn't be
Um,
having it's caffeine free Diet Coke because they can't have caffeine.
exactly. D Cool says, strangely comforting to know that I'm not the only one who hears about a crime and thinks this is how I would do this better.
100%.
Yep.
100%. Okay, so
Yep.
if she all right, let me just throw something out there.
Okay.
If she poisoned him with fentanyl, it would be premeditated, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This sounds like kind of a shittily planned premeditated crime in many ways.
Yes.
Um, or maybe not. I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
Fentanyl's so
well,
interesting. I mean, fentanyl is obviously what's killing like more people in America than any
Yeah.
other kind of drug, and it's horrible. And cops pretend that it makes them crazy, and it doesn't when they touch it. You can touch fentanyl. Nurses and doctors touch fentanyl all the time. Anytime you see a report about a cop opening up a package of drugs and there's fentanyl in it, and then they have like a seizure or whatever,
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
real. It's either hysteria or it's fake. It's not real, because
So
fentanyl doesn't do that.
a lot of
But
people in the comments are saying that the sister is saying that Kouri was the one who did THC gummies and that he didn't. So that's something that I want to get to the bottom of, is understanding what his drug intake was.
well, who says
And
he
what,
did other than Kouri?
I don't know. I don't know. That's something I don't have the answer to right now. So
We don't know something, then we shouldn't be talking about it, Mel. According
please.
to Mr. No Name on Twitter.
Yeah,
Now this is interesting. I like a good whodunit,
I do
or
too. I
not,
do too.
or who didn't do it, or who did it. Like, I like that kind of case.
Yeah. Oh, and then this was interesting. We talked about this case briefly the other day, which is another case that I'd really love to tell you about. But Megan said that's what they allege was used to kill Robert Wan. It's the DC case that I was talking about, with the gay guys who invited their straight best friend over, and then he was murdered,
Yes,
stabbed to death.
yes, yes.
And none of the men in the house, there were 4 men in the house, and none of the 3 of them, as far as I know, have ever been charged with anything. So let's see. Let me just go through some of these comments.
So he bought gummies in Mexico, so he wasn't afraid to fly with gummies. Kevin is mortified that I sometimes fly with gummies.
I
And
don't know how you do it. I'm too scared to do that.
I don't do it anymore because Kevin's so scared of it. But like, I've been told so many times that the drug sniffing dogs are not looking for weed.
Yeah.
But like, I need them to sleep. So, but now I've discovered that NyQuil works better for me right now than gummies does. So, which is not
Yeah,
great, but
I am too paranoid, and I would be the one who got caught by the dogs.
the
It would be
circumstantial
me.
case is very strong. I agree.
Agreed. Yep.
I can't say that I wouldn't convict at this point. See, if I fly with vape, people do it all the time.
See, TC Nerd. So TC Nerd is saying he had prescribed THC. He had been prescribed THC at some point, but not recently. So he Doonies.
What do
That's
you
a really
think I
good
do, Denise? That's what I do.
Rebecca, just don't tell Kevin you have them. Yeah. So TC Nerd, I mean, you're saying it's the book. It's in the, I assume you're saying it's in the book. Can you tell me which book you're talking about? And TC Nerd also says, oh, good. We have somehow shoehorned Kouri into this channel's brand, murdering women who murder, but not really, because something's off. I don't know. I'm just trying to look
I'm
at
not
it
saying
from,
she didn't do it.
yeah,
I'm just
me
saying
either.
that the evidence doesn't. I mean, it sounds like there isn't a great chain of evidence.
Yeah.
I mean, reasonable doubt. A guilty person should not be convicted if they're able to prove to the jury that there's reasonable doubt. That's. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't think guilty people should be convicted if the state doesn't prove their case. That I
Right.
might be old fashioned that way, but that's how I feel about it.
You
I
might be
believe in the. I might be old
constitutional in
fashioned
that
believing
way.
in the Constitution and shit, but like, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, agreed.
And from everything I know so far,
Okay.
I
Can I just
personally have reasonable doubt, but I think a jury might not.
can I just want to clarify something, and this is not me speaking as a doctor. Liz was saying that, you had mentioned his blood sugar. So blood sugar at 458, you can go into a diabetic coma. It's a very high blood sugar. But speaking as someone who has a partner who has type 1, I have seen her blood sugar get up to like 400, and though it makes her very sleepy and not feel great, she's not on the verge of going into a coma. I'm not sure why his blood sugar was that high. I'm not sure if he was type 1. I don't know anything about that, but I also know that if you are type 1 or type 2 and your blood sugar does get that high, and you do start to feel faint or you do start to pass out, you have a nasal spray that basically brings you back right away. So, there's that.
Fentanyl does make your blood sugar spike. Someone said
Yes.
in the comments, and I just checked it, and it is true.
Yeah. And then Amanda is saying that she doesn't believe that they are Mormon, if she recalls correctly. And then Lauren is also saying she doesn't think that they're Mormon.
But his family is.
His family might have been. But then Lou is saying the victim was Mormon, so I don't know.
It's interesting if his family. Okay. We're straight up in speculation land. I
Yeah,
apologize.
yeah, yeah.
I don't like when people do this, but I'm gonna do it for a second. I imagine tension in a family where if he comes from a Mormon family and then he marries her, and then there's THC and there's Moscow muling and then there's all that stuff. I can imagine there being some judginess about her sort of built
Mhm.
into it.
There's gonna be there's already judginess because she had an affair and because she forged documents to buy the mansion.
Megan, I
S
completely agree with you on this. There does have to be a standard, but like the police also have to do a good job. Prosecutors have to do a good job. Like the standard should be high enough that you can't imagine a reasonable alternative scenario where it could have. So we just listened to this podcast for Crime Writers On called something Valley of Shadows from Pushkin,
Mhm,
and it's about a deputy, sheriff's deputy, who was an ultra marathoner, and he went missing. He went for a run in this desert that he always ran in, and he went missing like in 1998. And somebody near where he went missing allegedly heard a gunshot. Um, he and the police couldn't find his body. They searched for a couple of days, couldn't find his body, and they determined he died by suicide.
mhm,
Now, they were also getting simultaneously a bunch of tips from people who said that he was killed because he ran across a meth operation, which sounds far fetched. It sounds like Breaking Bad shit. And then you add on to it that there was this other deputy who's super dirty, who was hanging out with meth dealers and dealing meth himself all the time. And that the police
mhm.
and the sheriff's department in that area were also like very heavily involved, like in the meth stuff. This guy was an outsider. He came from elsewhere to come in and could have been the type of person that if he ran across one of his colleagues at a meth lab, person might shoot him. Like, you know, you just don't know. So the podcast sort of builds up this alternative theory. And Kevin is very much like, I just wasn't convinced that it wasn't suicide. But then you
Mhm.
look at the reasons why they say it was suicide, and the reasons are all speculative. Would he have? He wouldn't have done this and then died by suicide. He gave his son this gift because he was about to die, but it's all fucking speculative. And on the other side, the murder side, there's actual things that have uh, foundation in reality, right? So
Sure.
I think the Occam's razor lies more toward the meth thing, and Kevin thinks the Occam's razor lies more toward the suicide thing.
Yep.
And so that what's the more likely? It's like people say it's more likely that Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe because she had a car, he was found outside. I actually see the Occam's razor going the other way. Bunch of angry
Yep.
men and a bunch of drinking
Mhm,
versus a 4 foot tall angry woman who seems to be angry all the time and never
mhm,
killed anybody before. Um,
mhm.
so anyway, I do think that juries are all different, and it depends on who's sitting there, and there has to be a standard. It shouldn't have to be video. That being
Yep.
said, I don't think guilty people should be convicted if the prosecutor doesn't prove the crime. I just don't.
Yeah, and I think that,
Beyond a
Cynthia
reasonable
is
doubt. Beyond a reasonable doubt. Not
beyond a reasonable doubt, legal standard. Cynthia is saying that Eric had an affair too. That is true. So they were having their marriage was troubled. I mean, that's obvious. So I don't know how much that plays into it. Again, I'm one of those people where in the world that we live in, if my spouse and I are having marital problems and they went and cheated on me and now I'm cheating on them and I am financially making a mess of my life, I'm still not going to murder that person. Like I don't just
you'd
go
you'd
get a
you'd, you'd
fucking
think about it
divorce.
though. You
I
wouldn't consider
wouldn't.
it.
I would never think about it. I would never think I wouldn't even consider it. What I'm saying to you, and I've been divorced and my spouse cheated on me and we started talking about this in our
Yeah,
members only live and it was a fucking mess and the way that I found out about it and all this shit. And I never once thought I just wish she would die. I
yeah,
never had that thought. And I also wasn't really mean to her either. People do stupid shit because they feel fear or they're scared or their life isn't what they want it to be. So they make stupid decisions to make themselves have spikes of endorphins and shit like that,
yes.
right?
When their
We all do
emotions are high too. Yeah.
yeah, we do stupid things. There isn't a moment where any of my exes I've ever thought, wow, I just wish they would die. Or you know what I mean? Or like if I had an affair, which I have had affairs too, if I was having an affair and I thought this would be so much easier if they would just die. I never even had those thoughts.
Yeah.
Like you just get out of it. You deal with financial ruin, you deal with co-parenting and custody issues, you deal with, being exposed as an adulterer, but you don't kill somebody. It's so hard for me to get there,
When I was going through my divorce, it was exceptionally painful, and I did never considered ever in a million years
No.
killing my soon to be ex-husband. But I did think, I wonder if it would be easier if he had just died. Like
Sure.
the breakup. I mean, granted, but it's like it's trauma. It was so traumatic and so difficult. I definitely had that thought, but I never played it out as a scenario in my head. I never actually thought about it. It was just more like comparing situations. Like would it be easier if he just died? Like would, because this is really hard. So would
Mhm.
that be easier or harder?
Mhm.
And it's like it was sort of that thinking. It wasn't, and
Sure.
I think a lot of people think that. There's a big difference though between that and poisoning your.
Yeah.
See,
Denise thinks
Journey.
it's funny that you said colleagues
Somebody
at the
agrees with
meth
me.
lab.
Colleagues at the meth lab.
No,
Yes.
I think it happens all the time that you have that fleeting thought, but what I'm saying is most people don't act on it. I would say 99% of people don't act on
Nine.
it.
You think only 10? You think 10% of you? No, 99.
I
I don't
said
think
I
it's.
said 99.
Yeah, 99
99.
plus. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, this is an interesting comment by Shelley. There is a recent Dateline where the police arrested and interrogated to a confession that he killed his father. His father wandered off for a few days and was not dead. I remember that story. And that's the thing. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Fun fact: the very first recorded false confession was because two brothers
Mhm.
were convicted of killing a man who had just left town, and the only way they were able to get out was when he came back.
Right.
Other fun fact: the Reed technique, which leads to a lot of false convictions, was developed on a case that turned out to be a false confession case.
Yep.
So, yeah,
It
confessions
happens all the
are.
time. Messy.
Never ever ever say because somebody confessed. If someone's declaring that they're innocent, never ever ever say, then why would he have confessed? Never ask that
Exactly.
question.
I think
Never
about the
ask that fucking
Delphi
question.
case. Yeah, I
All
think
the
about the
yeah.
Delphi case, and it's just like, yeah, what are we doing? I think about the Central Park
False
5.
confessions are exceedingly common.
Yeah,
Exceedingly
because people
common.
are terrified of the police. Marlboro asks, Mel, did you watch trial 1 through 3, or are you going to start watching? I have sporadically watched days 1 through 3, and I'm catching up with today and tomorrow. So I'm going to do a recap of what I've learned in the trial so far, either over the weekend or on Monday with Rebecca. And then from Monday on, I'm going to cover the trial every day and do a recap. So that's my plan. This is a
Okay.
great point. Say,
Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry. I totally hijacked your point.
That's okay. That's okay.
If she didn't do it, she certainly wasn't sad that it happened. I don't know if she did it or not. That's not proof that she did it, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Agreed. And I think based on the videos that they've shown us, she actually did appear pretty sad. And I think it's hard to sometimes put that on, but who knows? Liz says, I'd like to see the victim's phone in case it would show any patterns of drug use, etc. I too would like to see that. I don't know if the prosecution or the defense has it, but I do hope to see that as well.
How would the phone? Because of contacting a dealer?
Contacting anybody, talking about it. I mean, he could have, how you get those, prescription reminders in your phone? So if
Yes.
he had been prescribed THC or been prescribed fentanyl,
Don't they have
that
his
could be
medical
in the
history?
I don't know. I don't know yet. They probably
They
do, I would
must. They
assume.
must have his
Yeah.
medical
Yeah.
history.
Yeah. Um, let's see.
I love
Walking out
this.
of a
I love
courthouse.
hearing about a case that I know nothing about and asking probing questions, and the audience is like, "You don't know anything. Shut up." But I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Okay. After I left my kid's father, my daughter pointed out that he had had 2 loaded handguns on the shelf over our bed my whole life. I knew it, never gave it a thought. That's terrifying. Um, let's see. Jesse Miss Kelly. Yeah, Jesse Miss Kelly in West Memphis 3, false confession. And
Yep.
not only did he have a false confession, but he roped 2 other people who were completely innocent into it, and they also went to prison. I mean, it's
Oh my
insane.
God, the Jason Carroll case, which is the subject of Bear Brook season 2. That
Yep.
fucking kid didn't know the victim, didn't know anything. They were going to try 3 men. The husband, they ended up dropping the charges. The other guy was found not guilty, and this poor third kid who had a false confession because his mother was in the room and she was a cop telling him to confess. He's now in prison
Yep.
for the rest of his life because of that. It's wild.
Yep, and then the yogurt shop murders, which this past week, the guys who were convicted of those murders were exonerated. One of the original detectives for the yogurt shop murders got over 30 false confessions. That's from our listener Catherine. Yeah, I mean it happens all the time.
And cops often don't know that they're getting a false confession.
Right. Yeah.
Jason Carroll, anything new there? So the Jason Carroll case, there is DNA that is being tested. The prosecution agreed finally to test certain items of evidence. So what happened was undisclosed also followed the case.
Yep.
A clerk in the courthouse remembered the case, remembered seeing boxes in the basement with the case's name on them, found them, pulled them up. Jason Moon, when he was doing Bearbrook, went over, and inside the box was a knife,
Yep.
fingernail clippings, all the original evidence that they thought was lost. So they're now
Yep.
testing it. Those that test results are not back, but we will be reporting on it when they are back.
Absolutely. This case reminds me in some aspects of like the Darlie Routier case, right? So Darlie Routier was convicted on a lot of circumstantial evidence, including the silly string video. So Darlie Routier, if you don't know who she is, was charged and convicted of murdering 2 of her little boys by stabbing them to death. But she said it was a home invasion, and this happened in the 90s in Texas. I truly believe that Darlie Routier was convicted because of the silly string video. I don't know any other way around it, because she herself was near death. The attack that happened to her in the house that night isn't something that she could have done to herself, and she almost died herself. But days later, weeks later, after they had buried her boys, one of the boys' birthdays had come up, and her entire family, it wasn't just Darlie, but her entire family went out graveside and basically had a birthday party, and they tried to like celebrate this little boy. Her sister brought a can of silly string to this graveside thing. The press showed up, and they took video of Darlie and her family having a birthday celebration for her son who had died, and everyone's spraying silly string because it was her son's favorite. They showed this video out of context to the jury, and the jury saw a mother who they thought had just killed and stabbed her 2 little boys to death, celebrating on their grave, is the way that they saw it.
Yeah.
And that's not what happened. That's how the prosecution spun that to the jury. The other part of that case, the jury never got to actually see the injuries that Darlie sustained. So they were stuffed into this file. There were pictures. Darlie looked like she had been hit by a Mack truck. She also had her throat slit and a stab wound that went all the way through into her bone. The slitting of her neck was because she was wearing a gold chain, and the knife got caught on the gold chain and it saved her life. She did not do that to herself. Darlie Routier is on death row and her ex-husband. They had one son who survived, who was an infant, and her ex-husband, who helped raise their son, to this day believes that Darlie Routier, his ex-wife, who is accused of murdering his children, is innocent. So circumstantial cases will get you put in prison, but they may not always be right. But it's how the prosecution is able to manipulate the jury's emotions.
Yeah. So I just put a comment up about the body cam video in this case of
I didn't
the
see
accused who says, sorry, they said watch hold on, let me put it back up. So
I would like to address the body cam of the way that Kouri reacts to the cops. Yeah.
I would like to respond to this comment. And this is not about you personally, so I hope you don't take it that way. There are so many false convictions. And I'm not saying this is what this would be. I want to be very fucking clear. I have no idea if this woman, Kouri, killed her husband. It sounds like they have a fairly strong case. I don't know. There are so many false convictions where affect was used as evidence, both by the public and by the prosecution, to determine guilt. The West Memphis 3, those kids were weird. They wore certain clothes.
Satanic
they
Panic.
looked a certain way. I mean, there are so many. It's like Adnan Syed says he doesn't remember what happened. He doesn't remember because he wasn't fucking there.
Karen
Like
Reed was screaming at John on the voicemails and calling him a pervert.
if you're gonna say that about this woman, then you have to also use that same lens and look at
Yes.
Karen Reed and say, well, doesn't
Yep.
she seem mean? She seems like the kind of person. She didn't. We look at her now. She's not crying for John. She's
Right.
not. It's like that kind, especially with women. That kind of stuff gets used all the time against women who did not commit any crimes. The reason why the Innocence Project doesn't take up uh, crimes involving women nearly at the rate that they take up crimes involving men is because they need usually it's physical evidence like DNA. They
Sure.
want something. It's not procedural. It's usually something that they can prove actual innocence, right?
Yep.
So many women are in prison because they're convicted of crimes that weren't actually crimes. Things
Mm-hmm.
like shaken baby syndrome, things like being married to somebody who dealt drugs, things like that. But like the deaths of babies is a huge reason why a lot of women are in
Yes.
prison, and a lot of those are not actually murders,
Right.
but because of the way a woman sounded on the phone, or because of the way a woman reacted when being told that the baby died, that is used as evidence to convict her when there's
Mm-hmm.
no scientific evidence at all that it was murder. And
Right.
it's so I have like a real, and I even have a real problem with it when I know the person did it, like Chris Watts. Like you watch those body cam videos, the Chris Watts
Yeah.
case, that's the guy
Yeah.
who killed his wife and kids and stuffed their bodies down into like an oil well.
Yep.
That body cam video, objectively, like he seems like he's lying. That being said, that is not evidence that he actually killed him. He did. And that is still not evidence that he killed them. And it just
Mm-hmm.
isn't. So we just have to, as a group of human beings, sort of let
Mm-hmm.
go of this. They seem guilty. It's my gut says they're guilty. They seem like they did it. They're not reacting the way I would react. Like, first of all, you don't know how you would react. Second, they're reacting the way they react. Not everybody
Right.
reacts to a surprise party the same way. Not everybody reacts to a birth of a baby the same way. Not everybody reacts to cutting their finger the same way. Like, that's just something we tend to forget when we look at this stuff. And I get very fired up about it. And I'm so sorry because your comment was made with good intentions and you're a very good person. But that's
No,
how
this is one of your big things. We talk about
I
this a lot.
crusade
We've
on
talked.
this. I
Yeah.
crusade on this.
Just to follow up with Darlie too, a couple people mentioned that there were some really good. There's not a lot of documentary stuff about Darlie because she's on death row and she doesn't have access to video or phone. The Innocence Project, the main Innocence Project in New York, has actually taken on her case because there is DNA evidence in Darlie's case and they are testing it right now. And I know that her family is hoping that the results are going to come through and exonerate her. I did a sort of Cliff Notes. I would say it's a Cliff Notes / deep dive on Darlie's case. Darlie happened. It's a personal case for me because I was a teenager in Texas when this happened. And it hit me really hard. Darlie didn't live far from me. And it was another one of those cases like Pam Smart where I thought, oh, she's a murdering whore, basically. And it's good that she's in prison. But then as I got older, I realized what they had done to her. So I do a 2-part series on the In Between podcast. One is telling you about the case about Darlie. And the second part is like a very long, I think it was like an hour and a half long interview with Darlie's sister, Danelle. And it's really illuminating. So if you want to follow up on it, go listen to that. Somebody asked me a question and it confused me. Marlboro said, Mel, hypothetically, if Wendy is arrested, what would you think? I don't know who you're talking about. So clarify who Wendy is and I can maybe give you my opinion. Oh, Wendy Adelson. Oh, okay. Wendy Adelson. Do you know about the Adelson case, Rebecca?
I went on court TV once about I think it's Adelson case.
Adelson, yeah.
And that's the one where he was a dentist, right? And it's like gosh, it's so funny. I was talking about sort of what happened that day in court. So I don't really know
the
enough
Cliff
about it.
Notes, version of the Adelson case is that husband and wife were having some issues. The wife's family hated him. The wife, I believe, was having an affair, and the grandmother, they were going to get divorced, and the grandmother didn't want to lose custody of the kids to the husband. And so the grandmother and one of her sons basically hired hitmen
Oh, he's a
and
law professor. Yeah. Yeah.
killed um her daughter's husband, right? So the only person in this case who has not been arrested thus far is the wife, Wendy, who a lot of people think had something to do with it. I don't know, honestly, Marlboro. I don't know if she had anything to do with it. She testified. She was investigated. I found her to be somewhat credible, but I don't know. There has to be evidence that she had something to do with it. They had a lot of evidence against Grandma Adelson and the other son. But I don't know about Wendy. I'd have to see more evidence to know if they arrested her. And I think that there's a good possibility they will arrest her. It seems like it's moving in that direction.
Yeah.
It took them what, 10 years to even get convictions and get them charged.
2014 murder. So they were
Yeah,
divorced, but she wanted to bring Wendy and her children closer to her in Miami because the
right.
divorce was contentious and she was not going to
Mhm.
see the kids. Yeah, I don't know. I hate when you guys talk about your ass, talk out your ass. I hate it too. The case, this isn't the case that I went on court TV. I went on court TV to talk about the case of the guy. It was like the parents were in Florida and they flew to visit the kids, and then the son was murdered, and people think the dad had something to do with it. A very similar case. Yeah, Wendy
Oh,
Adelson,
sorry.
man.
Yeah, it was a custody battle. You know what, guys? I didn't cover the Adelson case. I told you I was doing a Cliff Notes paraphrasing. Sorry, just cut me some slack here. I wasn't trying to report the wrong facts here. I was just trying to tell Rebecca a little bit about what I knew about it. So catching up, I wish Kouri's lawyers weren't so condescending and disingenuous. That has been so from day one, Kouri's attorneys during cross-examination, he came off as a pompous dickhead. And I think he realized that. He was being very condescending. You're absolutely right. The next day, he changed his demeanor, actually, drastically.
He
He was
pulled a
being
McCabe.
he all yeah, kind of. He even apologized to one of the cops that he was cross-examining. Like, just so you know, this is my job. I'm sorry I had to put you on the spot. Like, it was strange to see an attorney apologize to a witness. I know he was doing it for the jury, so that they wouldn't think he was a complete asshole all the time. But yeah, that first day he was a dick.
It's funny because we expect, and this is it's like the CSI effect.
Yeah.
We expect lawyers to be good characters at trial. We expect them to to be, and it's so funny when you think about uh what their job is. Like, their job is to fight on behalf of their client to get them the best outcome
Yeah.
possible. The fact that a lawyer, like a smart person who studied for 3 years and then worked their way up to the point where they can defend a high profile case, has to also consider what they wear, what their demeanor is. It's kind of wild if you think about it. I know it's true. I'm not saying it's not. It is true. They do have to think about those things, but it is kind of wild. I mean, think about the
Yeah.
Karen Reed team. She had four archetypal characters. She had the fiery, angry defense attorney. She had the dad, gentle, thoughtful guy. She had the nerd, and she had a woman who was also very sort of organized. She was the organizer. She was the mild mannered one.
Mhm.
She's the one keeping the
Mhm.
boys in line. She had
Mhm.
four. It was like they were archetypes, and I think that we expect that. And I just think that's interesting.
Just a side note, I know we have to wrap it up here because you have to get going, but, as far as sidebars go, I find the sidebars that are between, Eliza Little and Bev Canoni to be the most interesting. We talked
Why?
about this a lot on the readathon. You always asked me, "Do you think that Bev likes her? Or do you think that Bev," and I always said, "I think Bev is annoyed with her because she's young and smart." And
She cut her more slack in the trial, I thought.
yes, but the sidebars, not so much. She's kind of a
Oh,
dick to Eliza in the sidebars, so I would go read them.
well
Um,
then, I was wrong.
let's see.
So I should
K and
never
K
talk
from Date
about
with Dateline on
anything because I'm admitting I
Adelson
was wrong.
case.
Oh, I love Kimberly and Katie. They're two of my
Okay.
best podcast friends. I love
Yep.
them. Love
Yeah,
them.
Liz says have K and K from Date with Dateline on to talk about the Adelson case. I would love to. Is that something that we can put together, Rebecca?
Absolutely, we can.
I had a peripheral knowledge of that case. So that's why I'm like, I don't know if they were divorced. I don't know. I just know there was a custody battle. There was going to be a custody battle and that the grandma was overbearing and came in and tried to like run the whole thing and ended up doing that and then ended up getting someone murdered, her son-in-law. So
Man,
I
what a
would love,
matriarch.
yeah, so let's see if we can get K&K to come in and talk to us about the Adelson case. I'd love to. I wonder if they've done, I should go look at their feed and see if they've covered anything on the Foss case or anything on the Kouri Richins case, because that would be interesting to have them on. So, Rebecca, I know you have to go. I'm so glad you guys were able to spend over 2 hours with us this morning. I didn't expect this to
Despite
go
our
for 2
tech
hours.
issues.
Yeah, I mean, cut us some slack, please. We're still getting, we're still getting used to some things here. We've only been around for a few months. We're still building. That being said, if you like what we're doing, please like and comment and rate and share the content, and please subscribe to the channel. It really helps our algorithm. If you feel so inclined, you can tip us by going to that QR code, or down below you can either do Venmo or Cash App. The tips help us keep this thing running. We put in a lot of work. So I appreciate the tips. I appreciate anything you guys can do to help us along. We'd really like to keep doing the show, and I'd like to get to a place where we can do it every day. That would be fun.
That'd be amazing. Can you
I know, wouldn't
imagine?
it? I
We'd make so
know.
many mistakes.
I know.
It
I
would be
know.
so great. We'd give the trolls so much fodder to criticize us if
Listen,
we did it every day.
I expect that I'm going to make mistakes. I also expect you guys to call me out on it, but also expect me to be like, stop giving me a fucking hard time. Don't be an asshole when I say
Yeah,
something.
we don't. You don't have to feed
Um,
them. Don't be the poisonous tree.
I know, I know. All right. Well, I love you, Rebecca. I appreciate you. I appreciate you guys in the audience. Thanks so much for the great conversation. And I will start covering regularly this Kouri Richins case. Starting on Monday, I will do a recap at some point over the weekend. And Rebecca and I will be back for more. Rebecca, where can everyone find you online?
You can listen to Crime Writers On. You can listen to These Are Their Stories. You can listen to Something's Off. I mean, Something's Off. You can listen to You Can't Make This Up. Or you can follow me on social media, including, yes, I am still on that fuck site X at Reb Lavoy. I'm also at other places too, but it's always at Reb Lavoy. And sorry about the tech issues today. Having your
Don't worry about
husband
it.
change out your modem 5 minutes before you tape, not the world's greatest strategy.
We're
So.
lo-fi sometimes, it happens. I'm gonna have a new backdrop here soon, though, and I'm kind of excited about it. It's not gonna be my bedroom office anymore, but yeah, you can find me. You can listen to my audio podcast, well, podcast obviously, but only audio, the In Between podcast, wherever you get your podcast, or you can do ad free on my Patreon at the Investigator Club. As well, I have the new show Newslight with Mel Barrett. It airs every Wednesday night here on YouTube, 7 p.m. And the YouTube channel is Newslight with Mel Barrett. That's Newslight, not Newsnight. And then I also have this show, which I love so very much. And I love you all. And we will see you on Monday, but you will probably see me before Monday. But Rebecca and I will be back on Monday.
For sure.
Okay. We love you all and have a great Thursday. See you later. See you on the flip side.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.